Live.
Okay, I think we will start so that we don't waste time. Some colleagues will join us in. Good morning, colleagues. Dimacharoni, Abusheni, Dumelang, Huemore. Which one did I forget? Sanibonani, Molweni. I know the French here wants me to say bonjour. Okay, bonjour. So yeah, again, welcome to the LPGSA Win LPG webinar. My name is Khadibulai Dihlabi. You can all call me Khadi. I'm the Managing Director of LPGSA, and I'm your host for today. Just a note for you, our attendees and our distinguished speakers. Just in the rare case where we lose connection, my colleague Tony Ngugi will step in as the host. So we don't want to keep you like waiting for us. So Tony will step in. So once you hear that charming voice of Tony, don't be alarmed. I know my voice is not that charming like Tony's one, but nonetheless, my colleague Tony will step in the case where I get disconnected. Again, let me welcome you formally to the LPGSA Win LPG webinar. We always hope with these sessions that we equip you with information that will answer some of your LPG industry questions. Like people ask themselves about this industry, is it that really what do you call it, secretive? It's not really secretive. It's just that there is not much information going around, but if you talk to the right people, you will then get to know more about our industry, and it's quite a very interesting one. If you are like me from Kwatwa or rural areas, you know definitely you need to know about this industry because LPG is that important to us people in the rural areas. That's the only source of energy, if I may say so. Just to give tribute to one of the legends of this industry or the energy industry who has since passed away. Recently, the energy industry lost one of its greats, Dr. Namani Mahau. As those who knows her, they will know that she was at NEXA, I believe. And so for me, Mena Mani, and this is why we need to give tribute to her. Mena Mani was a visionary, a legend who was always for women's development. So there is no other time or best time to give tribute to a person of her stature than during this month of Women's Month. She passed away in May, sadly. And as we all know, in August in South Africa, we commemorate the bravery of the women of 1956. And we also celebrate them because these are the women who literally gave us the right to speak as women of this country. And we need to always acknowledge that. That's not to say we are all liberated, we are all speaking freely. We all know the problems of our country with regards to gender-based violence, unemployment, and things that hit women hardest than others. But we choose on this day as LPGSA to give tribute to those women who gave us voice, to the women like Mena Mani, who constantly fought for our liberation and constantly reminded us that we are not a lesser citizen in this country. So without wasting any of your time, we will play a short video for you, which was one of the TikTok postings that I believe paid the best tribute for Mena Mani and basically all the women who fought for our liberation. So just give us your attention for the next 2 minutes or so. Thank you. Nivan, video.
Challenge of liberating this country was huge. But let me tell you, liberating ourselves economically is an even bigger challenge. You cannot say you are liberating women if you leave them still vulnerable economically, because then they remain vulnerable and easy to abuse by their partners or even by broader society. Guys, we cannot be timid. Otherwise, we're not going to go anywhere. In this changing environment, how do you come in? How do you participate? How do you co-create new realities? And that's why for me, having a strong Black woman caucus, saying we are here and we are demanding change and we would like to know how we come in and also how we can support change is very important. This is time for action. And also it's time for real change.
May Menamani's soul rest easy. And we remember all her lessons going forward. We definitely shall not forget her. Thank you. Back to the order of today. So in August, as I said, LPGSA celebrates the women in LPG industry who have achieved important milestones in their journey against all odds. You can see them in the screen there, those beautiful ladies. These are the women who inspire us. They actually give us courage to wake up and try again. Because believe me, sometimes it is hard to try again, to wake up and try again. But these women reminds us constantly that we have to try again. We can't give up now. And this, we also celebrate the women known and unknown in the industry who are playing their part in ensuring that LPG is plays its part in eradication of energy poverty in the country and addresses the UN Sustainable Development Goals, in particular goal number 7, which is affordable access to clean energy. And we are a clean energy, ladies and gentlemen. Don't forget that. And don't believe otherwise. LPG is clean energy, right? We salute and appreciate all the men who always accompany us in this tough journey. There are a lot of men who support us in this journey. So let's not forget all of those, known and unknown, those who are not here today, those who are here today, who support us in this journey. Thank you very much. Just to introduce you to the program, we have a very interesting program today. We note that it's a little bit longer than last year, but we hope that you will enjoy it and you will learn much from it. So without wasting your time, I need to introduce our next speaker, who is Mrs. Pam Indurjeeth. She is the Managing Director of Oryx and the first woman chairperson of LPGSA board. Let me just read Pam's bio a little bit. Pam has 21 years experience in the petroleum industry, of which 12 years spent in different management and operational positions within BP Southern Africa. And she was basically running across lubricants, main fuels, and LPG division. In 2013, she joined Oryx Group in operational and executive roles in the supply chain and commercial sectors. She was appointed the Managing Director of Oryx in August 2019. She is actually another award winner that we have in this industry. In 2018, she won the LPGSA Woman of the Year award. And then in 2019, she was a winner of the WLPGA Woman of the Year award. You'll hear more about that later in the sessions. Please welcome Pam to give us that opening address. Pam.
Hadi, thank you so much, everyone. A very good day to you, to our chair. That was a lovely, warm introduction, especially with all the South African greetings. So thank you. I want to start quickly with that TikTok you started off, Khadi, and just to recognize the legacy of Dr. Nkabane. And one of the things that came through on that TikTok was time to demand change, and it's time for action. So let's take that throughout this webinar as well, as Khadi kicked us off with that video. So I'm delighted to be here, everybody. Thank you for joining this webinar. It's lovely to see so many familiar faces here today. I want to start by acknowledging our keynote speaker, Sis Hilda. Thank you for representing the Department of Energy and to bring your voice here. It is really important to see that level of support from our department and local government. So thank you for being here. I also want to acknowledge our talented pool of panelists. Guys, it takes a lot to be here and volunteer your time. So it's lovely to see you. And thank you. Thank you for holding that flag extremely high. I'm extremely proud to see all of you participate at today's webinar. So really lovely. I also, and Khadi touched on this earlier, before I actually go into the detail of my message to you, I think it's important, and we often say this, women empowerment is such a broad topic. But I want to commend all those passionate sponsors, both women and men, because behind every agenda and topic like this really needs an advocate. And this industry is moving along very nicely in terms of driving a women empowerment. So all those sponsors, specifically the men, thank you for taking the time out to join this webinar. And for those that haven't, that's also okay, because we know there's a lot that you're getting on with behind the scenes in supporting women development, women empowerment on multiple topics. I also want to extend a thank you to the other members of the Department of Energy, NERSA, the Department of Labor, many other associations that's in collaboration with the South African LPG Association. I think we all jointly salute you in terms of the discussions and the interactions that you're affording us. So without further ado, I have a very short message prepared for you, and it's along the lines of this topic and what are we going to take away from today. And I just want to share with you that as the oil and gas industry goes through this moment of transition on diversity and inclusion, the South African LPG industry, believe it or not, are taking some steps. Yes, we may call that baby steps, but guess what? There is some evidence that we are taking some steps to address the D&I agenda. And I'll be referring to D&I, and that's the diversity and inclusion. So yes, we still do have a way to go. It is a challenge, but it is about how do we come together to address these challenges. The pandemic we know is behind us, and companies are starting to show appetite in terms of resuming capital spending. And that's fantastic to see in terms of multiple companies really onboarding in terms of foreign investment, local investment, but beyond that, just beyond capital, it is to address these critical key topics like the D&I. So overall, we are confident of a stronger and more sustained approach with structural reforms selected and as we move forward. So some very encouraging steps. The LPG industry is certainly on its way in its commitment, but we need the support of many. And this is where Khadi and her team play a critical role in terms of bringing about this collaboration with all of you on this webinar and outside this webinar. So indeed, the Win LPG chapter, we're also very proud of. South Africa kicked off nicely. But what do we need to do in terms of this Win LPG chapter? Yes, we've launched it. Yes, we have a lot joining. But what we need is we really need to pick up the pace. We all need to pick up the pace in terms of the Win LPG chapter. And towards the entire webinar, we're going to ask ourselves questions in terms of what can we do differently? What can we challenge ourselves to take back to our organizations or our circle in terms of picking up the pace on our SA Win LPG chapter, on our transformation agenda, on our diversity and inclusion, on women empowerment? What is it that each and one of us can actually do? So I want to challenge us in terms of what is it we're going to, nothing that we need to discuss here, but personally, what is your personal ambition to take away from here? There's other activities going on in terms of economic recovery plans. There's activities surrounding the expansion of the LPG market in support of economic recovery, in support of doubling the LPG demand to take the pressure off the Eskom grid and the Eskom crisis, and where we can actually play another role. And it's on a rise, it's a concerning rise, and it's the youth unemployment rate. How do we run all these agendas parallel is things we really need to look at together in collaboration with the government. So yeah, I keep saying and I keep going to it because we need to be proud and tap on ourselves on the back. There is definitely visible effort. It is about just picking up the pace. And companies are ambitious in terms of wanting to achieve their D&I agenda. But what we need to ask ourselves, where in the priority list is this D&I agenda? This question of diversity and inclusion, transformation, women empowerment, where does it sit in boardroom discussions? Is it there? Or is it sitting on an HR objective, on the HR manager's desk, in terms of an objective they need to achieve? It needs to be brought into the forefront of the business. It is a critical topic. So in terms of succession planning, yes, we find it in terms of HR agenda, but business needs to look at this and now start setting itself personal targets with regards to who are we going to place where around succession planning. So I'm getting into critical details here, but it's things to take back to our organizations. When I say we can certainly do more, it is about the Win LPG agenda, which I said we need to actually pick up the pace. But we also need to look at a proper roadmap. Are we challenging ourselves enough? Are we looking at KPIs and objectives? Is there a timeline and a deadline to it? Can we say hand on heart, we have this roadmap, we've set this target, and guess what? We're working towards it because this is the roadmap of actions and plans. So this is what I really want each one of us to take away from this webinar, is let's challenge ourselves to put this roadmap together. I believe each and every one of us have a part to play, and we can certainly do this. So both government and industry continue to collaborate through the industry association, and Khadi and her team are playing a pivotal role to bring everyone together, but they cannot do this alone. And I appeal to you, to all of you, support Khadi and her team to bring this agenda to the top of the radar in terms of priority planning and not at the bottom of the agendas of various companies. So we're taking this opportunity, this Women's Month, to address and journey into building a credible track record. Let's remove the perception that we're just getting on with it. Let's really show evidence of building together and addressing these topics and share widely. We have Alison on the call. We'd love to share through her platform exactly what South Africa in its chapter is doing. Let's do that through her and via Khadi. There's lots of good stories that we need to start accelerating on and telling our story. So I have a quote here, and did you know that diversity and inclusion maximizes talent-driven innovation and can even boost productivity? So with productivity, guess what? Comes profitability, comes the performance. So ultimately, address that, and by default, everything else will come to play in terms of your organizations. So embrace this year's theme. We all know it. Generation equality, realizing women's right for an equal future. This concept links very nicely into the global campaign. A reminder, this time of the year is not only for the tribute to our women, but it is also a tribute to all those pioneers, and I alluded to it at the beginning of my session. So let's commend them, let's push them along. Let's embrace all those men that want to actually support us and stand beside us in driving this agenda in terms of diversity, inclusion, women empowerment, and transformation. I ask you to pick up the momentum, pick up the pace. Let's build our roadmap together. Now, before I hand over to Khadi, I just want to say thank you for your passion. Thank you for representing. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join this webinar and really chant all that we need to support Khadi and her team in driving multiple agendas. I'm exceptionally proud of the work that Khadi has come on board and done in putting LPG out there on the map. I think she speaks this mantra in her sleep, by the way. And before I hand back, Khadi, Alison, thank you for being here. We love having an international representation here. It shows that you have SA at heart. So thank you for being here and appreciate you being here. Join us in enjoying this webinar. Back to you, lovely chair.
You know when your boss tried to indirectly put pressure on you, right? With regards to your performance, I think that's what she just pulled on me right now. I heard the call, Pam, and yes, I always say I am a great advocate of LPG because I believe in the product so much. Thank you, Pam. I heard something very important from your speech. We need to get the diversity and inclusion out of the HR tables. We need to start putting it in succession planning. I'll go a step further and say we need to take the whole transformation agenda out of HR's desk or procurement desks. We need to start actually making it operational. We need to start seeing companies embrace supplier development, enterprise development, helping small businesses come along, especially in this industry. There is an opportunity to do that, and I believe the companies have the abilities to do that. So we need to start taking that conversation out of the papers. We need to make transformation a part of the strategy of the organization, not just a talk. Thank you very much. Without further ado, we have a very important guest amongst ourselves. Our program, I need to apologize, our program had indicated that our guest speaker today will be the Deputy Minister, Dr. Nobuhle Nkabane. I actually just received an SMS, literally a WhatsApp, about 5 minutes, not 5 minutes ago, about 30 minutes ago. She had hoped to join us from Singapore directly and not cancel on us. So it looks like the flight was delayed a little bit. So her connecting flight is running also early. It's not like late as well. It's not delayed. So she has to connect very quickly. She's heading to another government function somewhere down under. But the Deputy Minister did not leave us alone, did not just leave us on the ledge. She sent Sis Hilda Mhlongo, the DDG for Corporate Services, to represent her. And Sis Hilda, welcome to the WIN LPG. The reason we call it WIN LPG, I didn't get the chance to brief you. It's Women in LPG. The element, the name was coined out of WLPGA, which is our sister, I want to call it that way, our sister association, global association, and we are part of that network. And so welcome to this WIN LPG 2022 webinar, and I will hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Program Director, and thank you for the warm welcome. Just on the WIN LPG, I'm in, so I'm part of you. As the Program Director has indicated, good morning, everybody. I am representing the Honorable Deputy Minister, Dr. Nobuhle Nkabane. She had to attend to another government program, and she's not here with us, but I am here. And just for Pam, just to indicate to you that indeed from DMRE, the plans are not at my desk in the HR office. We are definitely implementing, and perhaps in the next webinar, we will be sharing progress of what we are doing. Program facilitator and the MD of LPGSA, Ms. Hadibulai Ditlabi, MD of Oryx Energies and LPGSA Board Chairperson, Ms. Pam Odajith, World LPG Communication Director, Alison Abbott, representative of different companies, representatives of different public and private sector institutions, esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. The Deputy Minister is sending her warm regards from the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy. And I am going to read her speech the way she wanted to address the webinar. I am very pleased to have been invited to participate in this very important event when women in LPG seek to address the gender imbalance in the LPG sector. Unfortunately, due to competing schedules, I could not be here with you today in person, but I am in full support of your endeavors to forge women empowerment. I have worked in a number of male-dominated sectors, so for me, this issue has a deep and personal resonance. We can send people to the moon. We can explore the vast depths of our oceans. We can build great cities and towering structures. We can even talk to our computers. We have achieved greatness in many areas, but on the issue of gender imbalance, while there has been progress in South Africa and around the world, far more needs to be done. I am grateful that the LPG sector is well represented at the Gender Ministerial Advisory Council for the Energy Sector. Together with the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, the sector will be able to implement, monitor, and support the implementation of women empowerment and gender equality strategy. This is one thing that needs the collective to work together, and I have no doubt that the sector will commit and implement the strategy towards the transformation and gender equality. An ancient philosopher was asked what was the measure of human civilization from considering Darwin's assertion on evolution. His response was that the healing of the femur must count as the evidence of human civilization. His rationale being that a broken femur or thigh bone spelled certain death in the proverbial jungle where the fittest survived. So a healing femur was evidence of a society that cared for the injured instead of leaving them for death. It is my submission today that gender equality must surely count as evidence of progress on democratization, whereas in the past patriarchy left women for death. It is imperative that we empower women now and for the future. For surely, as some have metaphorically asserted, we hold up half the sky. A great number of South African women have inspired us throughout history, succeeding against all odds to blaze a trail of future generations to follow. As part of celebrating the Women's Month, the struggle for the 1956 women has to continue until we achieve gender equality in our sector and country. Real women empowerment in the energy sector can help empower women in many ways, as they have borne the brunt of energy poverty characterized by fetching firewood, often in the dangerous alleys. So why should the industry concern itself with gender imbalance? The simple answer is that an LPG industry which is equally appealing to both women and men will provide the sector companies with access to the entire pool of talent that South Africa has to offer. Conversely, an industry that is not attractive to women risks losing the best talent to competitors. The fact remains that companies with a gender balance perform better because diversity brings together varied perspectives. To put it in simple terms, the LPG sector cannot reach its full potential without maximizing all available talent, which includes women, youth, and people with disabilities. Distinguished guests, the production and supply of LPG involves players in the value chain, including the upstream explorations, the refineries or producers, wholesalers, distributors, dealers, retailers, and end users. Women must be included throughout the value chain and must play a leading role like their male counterparts. South Africa's liquefied petroleum gas, LPG, rollout strategy has been approved by Cabinet. The objective of the plan is to advance the domestic industry and expand the application of LPG in diversifying the energy mix. Energy security, affordability, and decarbonization represents key components of that strategy. This presents great opportunity for women to enter the sector. While South Africa battles a constrained national grid, the rollout strategy aims to reduce pressure on the grid while also reducing consumer dependence on expensive fossil fuels such as coal and paraffin for cooking and heating. The DRME has outlined in a draft version of the document that the plan will address challenges such as lack of adequate infrastructure across the entire LPG value chain. This will range from production and distribution to wholesaling and retailing. The Department of Mineral Resources and Energy seeks to double the LPG market by 2026 in a bid to provide the consumers with a more affordable, cleaner, and greener energy. The department will work in partnership with both private and private sector institutions such as the Central Energy Fund to accelerate the development of key gas infrastructure and to increase market players in a bid to stimulate competition. While doing that, women need to prepare themselves and be ready to participate as entrepreneurs. Program Director, while women are the biggest users of LPG for cooking, they are generally not involved in LPG distribution or other parts of the supply chain. Integrating them can help build LPG usage. The supply of LPG represents an important employment sector with growth potential in and of itself. But modern technology, energy technology business have been viewed as a man's work, while women operate more traditional and less profitable biomass-based micro enterprises. A number of barriers to women's entrepreneurship needs to be addressed in order for women to become LPG energy entrepreneurs. New approaches that include training and microcredit and partnering with formal and informal women organizations like LPG Association can help overcome the traditional constraints on women's participation and take advantages of their strengths. Women and youth participation should be prioritized. I challenge the LPG Association to investigate a suitable mechanism that can ensure prioritization of women in the sector. We do need positive discrimination to correct past imbalances. As government, we remain committed to open up any bottlenecks through policies and, if needs be, with relevant legislative reviews and amendments. No stone must be left unturned to ensure women empowerment in the LPG sector or any other economic sector. Program Director, before I conclude, I must talk a bit about gender-based violence. We need to also find creative solutions and support mechanisms as we battle the alarming epidemic of violence against women. Our young ones, both boys and girls, are viewed as extensions of their mothers, their aunties, their grannies, and are therefore also violently attacked and abused. Women's and children's rights are human rights. The recent rape of 8 young women at the mine dump in West Rand surely alarmed all of us, and it is a tragedy that must never be repeated. We can only scale back the tide of women abuse through working together, same as generally empowering women in the various economic sectors, such as that pertaining to LPG. With these few words, I wish you a fruitful, insightful, thought-provoking, and productive discussion and networking section. I thank you.
I want to clap. I get emotional sometimes, so excuse me. No, don't excuse me. It's my strength as a woman, the ability to be assertive and emotional at the same time. That's what I'm given, and that's what I must use. DDG Hilda Mhlongo, thank you very much. Please convey our gratitude to the Deputy Minister for that thought-provoking speech. And LPGSA accept the challenge. I will accept it on their behalf because I will execute the challenge. We will, without shame, without excuses, without favor, prioritize women and youth in this industry. We will make it a positive priority. As the TikTok clip from Menamani said, we cannot be timid, and we should even not make excuses for not prioritizing women and youth in this industry. I can tell you this, and you can convey this message. The board of LPGSA has 4 women in it. 4 of them are in this webinar. Let me tell you quickly. That's Pam, our chairperson. That's Tshilidzi from Totalgaz, who's the MD. That's Esme Toit, who is actually leading the installation division. And you know that is all about men there. They see women installers, they go, are you sure you can install my gas in the house? And that's another woman asking. So I can tell you, and that's another, the other one is myself, but I can also tell you the men in the board actually support the prioritization of women in this session. Otherwise, I mean, there's 4 out of 9, they will block us with a vote to not even have this webinar. So I can tell you that it is a priority. The inclusion of women and young people in our industry is very important. And that's why we host these types of webinars. That's why when a young person shows up in our office and say, I want to be an installer, I want to be a player in this industry, we get excited with as LPGSA team, and we try to hold their hands as much as possible where we can. We work in an environment that is highly regulated. And one thing we have learned is that if we can help them get through that compliance, regulatory compliance breach, everything else becomes much, much easier. That's not to say there is no barriers to this industry, but we have picked up where we are able to assist and make it easy for women and young people to participate in this industry. We do not exclude men, we just prioritize without shame women and young people. Thank you very much for that speech. We really appreciate your presence, and we really do appreciate the Deputy Minister for sending you. I know that they waited till the last moment where they could, like they really did not want to disappoint us. And that's why Hilda was sitting in the background, if I may say so, as a standby up until literally 5 to 10. You were a standby, and but you made it. You are part of us. We are not going to let you go. I know your office. So I will be coming in there to just check if that strategy is out of HR papers. I know Winnie and Aus Elizabeth will also help me during that Gender Ministerial Council so that you can keep track on us. LPGSA is proudly, and I'm proudly to represent the industry in that Ministerial Gender Council. There's a lot of work that's been done, and I will urge our attendees and everybody else to, pay attention and go to the department's website and check all the work that is being done throughout the industries, the energy industry, on that Gender Ministerial Council element. Thank you very much, and we appreciate you and your presence here. I think we get into the part, I call it the education part of our session. The panel discussion. This is where, if you ever wanted to learn anything about LPGSA or LPG industry, you need to be here. You need to be present. I can see the attendees list is picking up. We have quite a number of people registered. We are sitting at 50, and I know that's definitely not even 50% of our registered attendees, but I believe throughout the session, people will come in into the session. But having said that, you are here, we continue with you. Ladies and gentlemen, we now get to that part of the value chain of the webinar. The aim of this session is literally to educate you and give you as much information about the industries, the LPG value chain, with the hope that all your questions about these industries gets answered, and you will become a step closer to being part of the value chain. As an entrepreneur, you had the DDG there. As an employee, you had PEM. As an LPG user, a lot of us are LPG users, but a lot of us shy away from being entrepreneurs in this industry. We need to start learning more and helping ourselves develop those small businesses. If we are to eradicate unemployment in this country, youth unemployment, we need to start stepping into that small businesses development area. So let me give you a little bit of history with these webinars, the educational webinars that we do. In 2021, we started with, that was in August, we started with unlocking the key to your LPG future, and we introduced you to the opportunities that are in the value chain. And we also introduced you to our regulators. You remember the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy was there teaching you all about the licensing requirements. And then you had the Department of Employment and Labor teaching you all about the safety requirements, the SABS standards that you need to adhere to, you know, the pressure equipment regulation, the OSHAC. They taught you all about that, and you had our panel then that was introducing you to this beautiful value chain of LPG. And then in April 2022, in partnership with WLPGA, we brought you 2-day workshop on the industry's best practices, where we literally guide your LPG operations. So for those who are in their operations, you had the opportunity to learn how to make your operations safer for the betterment of your bottom line. I mean, let's face it, you are here for your bottom line. If you are already in business. But at the same time, we also brought you LPG for development, which we believe must have taught you about the opportunities that are in this industry, especially where we are lacking as South Africa. I mean, we invited people from India who have an impressive LPG market and have grown it in a very short space of time. And then we had a gentleman from Brazil. I mean, I always tell people this. When I was doing my postgraduate diploma at UCT in 2010, I was doing a case study about the chaotic energy industry in Brazil and the lack of it. But last year, we held a webinar where through LPG, a Brazilian representative literally told us how they have used LPG to eradicate that energy poverty in Brazil. I mean, for me, India and Brazil are LPG goals. Young people, you can hear that I'm in your language. They are LPG goals. And as the MD of LPGSA and the advocate of LPGSA, I hope never to stop up until we get to that point. And I'm happy to know that we have the support of the department, the support of the industry to do that. So today, we bring you another session. We term it the Pillars of LPG Operations. Why the Pillars of LPG Operations? The ladies that you see here, they are the pillars of the association, of their industry, or the pillars of their organization within the industry. But at the same time, they represent a value chain that is a pillar of this industry. So our discussion will delve into the operational work that they do, but at the same time, into the pillar work that they do, or at least the business element where they are involved. We hope at the end of this session, you will know more about what drives the LPG industry, and you will have a place where you choose, I want to play in this sector or in this element of the value chain. So without again wasting your time, let me introduce you to our panel. We have Belinda Lopes, Belinda Lopes, she's from Fueltec. She's the Chief Operations Officer there. And we have Samantha May from CADAC, who is a product designer. We have Barbara Brookes from Petregaz, who is the operations manager. We have Tshilidzi Ramuedzisi from Totalgaz, and she's the managing director there. We have Nomkhosi Makhathini from Easigas. She's an executive director and the head of legal. Ladies, good morning. Have you unmuted yourself?
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Yeah. So I'm not going to waste more time. I'm going to start with you, Belinda. Belinda, you are in no doubt a part of the value chain that is a pillar of this industry. You literally make or bring to life LPG filling plants, LPG storage facilities. Tell us about the role that you do at Fueltec, and in general, what is that really, when we say you bring to life LPG filling plants and LPG depots?
Thank you, Connie. Thank you, Pam and Hilda as well, and panelists for this opportunity. Yeah, being a pillar of an organization requires structure, stability, durability, and a solid foundation to provide the required support, for the rest of your team. My dad started this, laying the foundation of Fueltec in 1987 and was joined by my brother in 1991. So together they built the framework for what has become quite a well-recognized installation company. In 2003, a tragic accident resulted in my brother being left to run the company alone. So I joined him. Since then, provided the stability, the reliability to enable the company to grow to what it is today. And as you know, any successful company requires a team that complements and contrasts each other's strengths and weaknesses. And I'm a terrible salesperson, and networking is really not my strength. But give me an idea or an impossible request and I can find ways to make things happen. So that's my role in this company in a nutshell. LPG in general, the industry was founded on supply and demand, with a few ideas of how to make the supply happen, and with many more ideas of how to make use of that supply. So what Fueltec does is establish the pipeline between the supply and demand. So we provide the platform of technical expertise, commitment to safety and compliance and service delivery, so that the end user gets the best possible way to make use of LPG. We provide turnkey operations to ensure that the LPG depots and filling plants are constructed and erected to code, and we maintain and service LPG delivery vehicles, so your road tankers, to ensure that safety and compliance is facilitated in the LPG transportation process. And we also maintain and upgrade bulk storage facilities as and when needed. So that's where we fit into the industry.
Okay, so Belinda, here I am. Khadibolai Dihlabi knows nothing about a cylinder filling plant, but I have learned, or at least identified one. I have wholesale license, and I really want to get into this industry. So you spoke about a cylinder filling plant, which is part of their areas, a depot, LPG depot, which is really a storage facility, as part of the operations that you provide. So tell us something. What are the key elements in establishing a cylinder filling plant? What needs to be taken into consideration? And what is, I mean, we need to understand, before I go and spend money, what should I know? And how does this come alive?
There are 6 key elements to consider primarily. You need to consider the size of your depot. How much gas do you want to supply? And your location. Where are you going to establish your depot? You need to be accessible to the people. You need to have fire department approval and compliant drawings. You need to then also consider the layout and flow of your operation. It must be ergonomically practical and safe. There's also firefighting considerations. It has to be controllable, and you have to have water availability to make sure that you have means of handling an emergency. And depending on the size of your installation, you may also need MHRs or EHR studies, EIA studies. So that would be your major hazardous installations and your environmental impact studies. And lastly, the most important thing as well is staff training. You need to understand cylinder safety, direct filling procedures, and emergency training.
Okay. And then how then do I do this? I mean, you need to elaborate more on this, considering the size of the depot. Why is that important? What am I doing there?
Your size of your depots firstly speaks to the requirements for an MHR and an EIA, your major hazardous installations assessment and environmental impact assessments. An MHR is necessary when the installation will exceed storage levels of 30,000 litres or more of flammable liquid that includes diesel and petrol. And an environmental impact study is required when the storage level exceeds 80,000 litres or more of flammable liquid. The flammable liquid volume will include all the LPG in your cylinders, as well as in your storage vessel, and as I said before, petrol and diesel. So that is why you need to consider the size of where you are going to place your storage depot.
Okay. And then there's the layout issue. We've seen as LPGSA, when we accompany either the fire department or the Department of Employment and Labour into inspections of depots and of filling plants, we've seen, some layouts that I don't think were well thought of. So when considering your layout of a filling plant or a depot, what do we mean by that?
You need to consider the key tasks of the operation. So where each task will be carried out in relation to the other. You need to consider where your storage site will be and how easily a road tanker can deliver the LPG to the storage facility. And then also how easily the cylinder filling point can be supplied with LPG. You then need to consider where you'll be able to apply the shrink wrap after the cylinders have been filled, where they'll be stored and how they'll be delivered to your customer. So you also need to consider where the empty cylinders are going to be stored, and above all else, making sure that safety distances are met.
Okay, just for the interest of our attendees, one of the horrendous scenes that we saw was a filling plant and a storage facility that was literally built just below, and for some odd reason the electricity wires were very low in that area, and you looked at that and you go like, I fear for the community that lives nearby. So these things are important, and that's why we bring them to you. But then you also mentioned something which is in my heart, staff training. Why is important? I mean, LPGSA provide the training, but tell the people why that staff training is important.
The operation runs better when people know what they're doing. There are many working components to a depot. Knowledge of the process and safety aspects is very important to an efficient operation. The person filling the cylinder is the industry's link to providing safe delivery of gas to our homes or factories. And that person has to make sure that the cylinders that they're filling are safe and compliant and is filled correctly and sealed according to standard.
Yeah, that's great. I like it when somebody says it. When I say it, it sounds like a, what do you call it? The song that just goes on forever, because I want to hear the sound of my voice. But the truth of the matter is we have seen under and overfilled cylinders, and that's a true result of untrained staff, or plain bright, cheating the consumer and then placing the reputation of this industry at risk. So, but we'll get more to that later. Thank you, Belinda. So that is the value chain that is, without doubt, without LPG filling plants, without LPG storage facilities, you go nowhere. So that's what makes that value part of the value chain a pillar to us. The next pillar is actually one that allows for outlets. I see Samantha is already smiling. Yes, it's you, Samantha. You got to teach people about appliances. So let me ask a question. Have you ever thought about somebody or the person who designs an LPG appliance when you buy one? I'll tell you what, up until I met Samantha last year, I never thought about them. I just thought, can't they just create a kettle that will make me tea during load shedding, like electricity does? Like literally, it needs to be convenient. If ever I meet a product designer for LPG appliance, that's what I'm gonna tell them first. I haven't told Samantha that, so Samantha, I'm telling you, please design one. Samantha is from CADAC. She is a product designer. Appliances or LPG appliances, without a doubt, are a pillar for this industry. And without them, we have no outlet for gas. So you can have all the gas you want. If you don't have a stove, a water heater, or a braai for that matter, to use your gas on, you literally have just wasted money in buying that appliances. I must say the appliances of LPG gas are giving electricity, they run for their money. Yeah, have you seen how beautiful they are lately? So just go to the store and check them out. Samantha, you are a product designer in the appliance industry. You work for CADAC. Tell us about you first. How did you become one? What does it take to become a product designer for gas appliances?
Firstly, good morning, everybody. My name is Samantha, and I'm a product designer at CADAC. So, as Khadi said, you know, products don't just appear. Somebody has to make them, and it takes quite a bit of thought in doing so. So, basically, being a product designer is almost the heart of any product, and it is where the magic starts and life is brought to a new product. Being the heart requires passion and commitment to producing a successful product in hope that it will be loved by all. So how I got into this industry is I first started studying drafting, and I got in doing drafting, and I worked my way up into doing product design. So I didn't just draw the products, I then actually started creating them. And what a product designer does is they develop products from an idea. So an idea is brought forward, and using CAD and multiple other software, you develop a look and a feel of a product. And so the product grows into something, and it goes through multiple processes until it is perfected. And part of those processes includes the LPG being in this industry. And once that product is perfected, a new product is born to the market for customers to buy.
Okay, that's interesting. So then product designing, what role, what role does it play in gas appliances industry?
I would say it's the beginning start of the processes, because well, without the products, you almost don't have the rest of the processes. So yeah, it's it's definitely the start of where the products begin.
Okay. And then just another one, Samantha, for us. Here I am. I want to be either I'm a potential gas appliances importer or a gas appliance manufacturer locally, which is possible. What do I need to know before I venture into this business?
Okay, so from my side, I'm not too familiar with the requirements of importing, but for the manufacturing part on an LPG, we definitely need to be familiar with the LPG standards and requirements that a product needs to comply to. And we have to go through multiple testing stages to ensure that these products are tested and pass the minimum requirements and safety regulations that are required by the South African national standards. And then thereafter, we also do get these products approved to get permits from LPGSA, which is you guys, and then before they are ever released to the market for selling.
Okay. Thank you, Samantha, for that. Just for the purpose of the attendees, in the website of LPGSA, when you go www.lpgas.co.za and you go about us, you will find a section that's how is my cylinder or is my appliance compliant. So literally, if you click on the appliance or a cylinder, you will find all the permits that we hold for different products, different brands of LPG appliances. So the next time you are in the shop buying an LPG appliance, just remember you have that option to check for the permit of that appliance. If it's not in their website, do not buy it. It's illegal. You cannot guarantee your safety with it. You can quote me on that. Or me and Samantha on that, isn't it, Samantha? Samantha brings a lot of permits here at LPGSA. She keeps us busy. Yes. Thank you, Samantha. We'll come to you a little bit later. When we move to the next section of the value chain, Barbara, there you are. So a lot of people, I don't know if you remember, not long ago, like literally in 2017, 2018, we used to cry, media reports after the other. I was in my previous job and I used to get calls after calls from the media. Where is LPG product? Where is LPG product? There is shortage of LPG somewhere in another place. There is, while in the meantime, I also don't have LPG in my house. That used to be so funny. Like I have to sort out the world supply problem and then I also don't have LPG in my house. But that became a thing of the past. The reason that there was a shortage of LPG in the country is because our refineries were just producing little LPG. It has been said before that at the time, only 3% of refinery production or outputs in the country was literally LPG, and that we shared with the organizations using for their own use. And I mean, a refinery is big. I'm sure they use a lot of LPG. So that was little left to the, for supply or for demand, domestic demands, and you name them. And along came a solution together with the government. Import facilities were developed in the Saldanha and the Richards Bay area. And I can tell you one of my best thing ever in 2019 was never getting that call that there was a shortage of LPG demand in the country or LPG supply in the country. So I still get excited because that's the list of the questions I get, Barbara. And Barbara is from Petregaz. They work together with Petregaz at Richards Bay. So import facilities automatically becomes a pillar of this industry, especially now with almost zero refinery production. There is still some, but it's really at its knees. And import facilities have stepped up and are helping us with that. So Barbara, what makes you the pillar of Petregaz and what makes you your part of the value chain, the pillar of this industry?
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be on board this panel. It's really amazing to see all the different elements and how we fit together and we form this giant need that the country needs, especially in view of the challenges that we have with regards to electricity. So I'm Barbara Brookes and I'm operations manager for Petregaz South Africa. We are the largest distributor of LPG in sub-Saharan Africa. We operate, as Khadi said, from the Bidvest tank terminal in Richards Bay, where we import product under our holding company, Petregaz, for distributions throughout South Africa and its neighbouring countries. So I've been in the industry for 10 years, and I've come into the industry as with a non-LPG background, knowing absolutely nothing about it, except that you get a 9 kg cylinder that you can use for your stove and your heater, etc., etc. And due to the fact that the industry was deemed a male-dominated industry when I entered it 10 years ago, it was my purpose to conquer the full understanding of the LPG process and wedge my foot in as a female leader. So my qualifications, because, you know, with a woman, it never stops. It includes, amongst other things, accounting, IT, operations management. And currently I have signed up to do my postgraduate in supply chain management and hoping to graduate next year. So I've managed the operations team for Petregaz for the last 8 years. And I believe operations is the key in any organization because it touches on all aspects: finance, management, logistics, and overall service delivery. So the team, we run the entire operation from distribution to transportation. And we deliver product using our own fleet of tankers together with third-party transporters. And then we also have our customers that collect their own product directly from the terminal in Richards Bay. So under my supervision, we record, we analyze, we action each transaction to ensure maximum efficiency and productivity. And as Khadi said, to ensure that there's no shortage of supply. So we report daily on the movement of the product ex-tank and as well as our deliveries. And our aim is to ensure that our customers get the best service, which includes our daily updates, clearing of our tankers which deliver across the borders, and real-time communication of the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because after all, it allows our customers to make a plan. Our processes are continually being monitored and updated. And this is just going to help us ensure that there are absolutely no grey areas and that any variance is reported and investigated immediately. So for me, just being a female in leadership, I don't only have the ability to lead with my knowledge and expertise, but with my heart as well. And thus creating an environment for our team to flourish, to excel and be happy with. So that's me and my pillar in the LPG industry in a nutshell.
Okay. So just a step back, Barbara. I'm hoping that from now on, the question about supplies or shortage of, or, you know, because shortages still happen, do come to you, not to me anymore. But the industry has gone through a lot of changes in the past, and people won't believe this, literally, in the past 5 years. And you will think that's not enough time for any industry to evolve. Can you just take us through some of the evolutions of the LPG industry?
Sure. So as you mentioned, you know, the industry has definitely evolved over the last couple of years. And I think that this can be attributed to mindset change and education on the safe use of LPG, as well as the fact that it's economical and it's more cost effective. So as a result, you know, the demand has far exceeded the supply from local refineries, and hence all of the phone calls you were getting. As you mentioned, you know, refineries produced 3% of the country's demand. And of course, shutdowns at the refineries also during the industry's critical periods, being winter months, resulted in huge shortages. So in order to fill the gaps, investments needed to be made into import facilities into an already crippled market. The Bidvest tank terminal import facility in Richards Bay has played a huge role in bridging the gap between the demand and the supply. So in 2018, the facility operated a 3,500 ton refrigerated bullet, and this has since expanded to a 22,600 ton cladded facility in 2020. So you can see within a space of 2 years, just how we've managed to plug the gaping hole in the market. And of course, the other import terminals are Sunrise in Saldanha, which services the Western Cape up right across up into Namibia as well.
Then there's one important factor about LPG supply and demand. It's a price part of it. Once and for all, tell people, Barbara, is LPG a regulated product in this country?
So let me just share something with you. Many people think I make up the pricing, and that's not true. LPG is definitely a price regulated product, Khadi. Since the onset of 2020, it was set at the MRGP, which is the maximum refinery gate price, and the maximum retail price, the MRP. And this was calculated and set by the Department of Mineral and Resource Energy. It was linked to the ULP 93 pricing. And as such, it created a huge gap between pricing from local refineries and imported product. So imported product pricing is linked to our Saudi CP and, of course, our ever-evolving rand-dollar conversion rate. And in June 2020, this was amended, and we were actually granted import parity, which kind of lined this pricing structure of product from local refineries, line that up with product that was being imported to fill the gap which we needed to service the markets. So this made the import environment conducive, and it just kept the market serviced, and it kept pricing affordable. So while the wholesale price of LPG is currently regulated, just in an attempt not to over-regulate the industry, the wholesale price is unregulated, but we just in an attempt not to over-regulate the industry, and government has also indicated their intention to try and regulate the price structure across the value chain, which currently at the moment, as I said, for us is being governed by Saudi CP and the exchange, the rand-dollar exchange. So I think we're just trying to make sure that there's a fair pricing structure across board applicable to both wholesale and distribution.
Okay, so summary, pricing is my specialty, but I get this question and I go like, all the time, because I think it should be that easy. MRGP is maximum refinery gate price. It's regulated. It's our import parity price. Then wholesale price of LPG is not regulated. And then we have MRP, which is maximum retail price, which is the price of the LPG to the consumer, the end consumer. That is regulated. It attracts VAT. So when you go and buy your LPG at any outlet, as an end user, you have to pay what we call an MRP price, maximum refinery, maximum retail price. And it should have VAT in it. Don't cheat, SARS, pay your VAT. So I think that is in a nutshell the summary, Barbara, in terms of pricing. We will get back to you later. I do know that Petregaz and Petregaz and I believe have nice good news for us with regards to LPG storages in the country, so that we can, ensure further that there is no constraints in supply of LPG in the coming years. We will come back to you later on that. All right. The next speaker is definitely in one of, and I believe, one of the most important part of the value chain, one that has potential. You know how the DDG Hilda spoke about the inclusion of women and young people being prioritized. This is the opportunity where they can become, or the way they can participate as either business people, small businesses in this industry, and that is in the distribution element. No doubt, that is a pillar. That's a pillar for growth, that's a pillar for transformation, and that's a pillar for this industry, without whom the distribution, without the distribution, this industry is going nowhere, because guess what? We can't get the product to the end consumer. Tshilidzi, as I said earlier, she's the MD of Totalgaz. Interesting about Tshilidzi, I always put her on the spot, is that she's from Main Fuels, and I know this for sure, being like she has done petrol, diesel, paraffin, you name it, HFO, and all those stuff. And then she had to come here, and she was also a regulator at the DMRE at some point in her life. She did a stint there. And so you can always easily put her on the spot with a lot of things, with the hope that, you know, she will either be the regulator talking to you or the industry player talking to you. So I do that on purpose, Tshilidzi, when I talk to you. And then, Tshilidzi, the thing is, you arrived in this industry, which is LPG. You thought, LPG, how hard can it be? After all, it was only 3% of the refinery production. I mean, I've dealt with petrol and diesel, for Christ's sake. You know how difficult that is? And then what happens? You find us with our challenges in the distribution. You find us with all the consumers crying and saying, I want product now. And then you find us with some of the biggest challenges of illegal activities in this industry. And you say what? Are you still enjoying it, Tshilidzi? You said to me, I'm okay, Khadi, still the other time. Are you still enjoying this industry?
Khadi, yes, thank you, Khadi, for that. Yes, absolutely. This is all of those elements that you mentioned is what keeps us on our toes and keeps the challenges going and keeps us alive. So, and I think this is the exciting part of this particular industry. And you're right, I'm passionate about the energy sector as a whole, and definitely, you know, in more recent years about the LPG industry. And you're also right in that this is the part of the value chain that I believe brings everything that has been mentioned before together. So we are involved in the distribution, wholesaling, and marketing of LPG, which is really in the middle, but which that cannot exist on its own. So starting with you know, the product sourcing and the supply side, Barbara has talked about that. So without the product in the market, there's nothing we can do. We cannot exist. We need to actually get our cylinders out there and get our products in the tanks, either the customer side. Without the tanks or the filling skills or any of the elements that Belinda mentioned, we can't do our business. And of course, looking at the end use side, you know, there's equipment that's actually required in the industry to actually make use of the product. And Samantha talked specifically about appliances from our side. And of course, it's not just appliances for individual consumers, but also in industrial processes and in commercial as well. So without the other parts of the value chain, this industry, our part of the industry doesn't actually exist and it's not viable. So it actually, for me, is the part that actually relies on all of it, but at the same time brings it together. And as you've mentioned, of course, it does present itself with a lot of challenges, but which industry doesn't have challenges? I think this is actually really part of any game in any industry. So so I think for me, that's really the industry itself. I think it's exciting, and my role in it as a pillar, as you mentioned, I'm the managing director who's obviously responsible for overseeing the entire operations of the business, from operations to sales, corporate services, everything, you name it. But at the same time, I also have a management committee which actually supports me in that. So, you know, a pillar, I believe that as a pillar, it's not a pillar that's standing alone. It's a pillar which is actually supported by other pillars through the management committee, but also the resources in the organization as a whole.
Okay. So Tshilidzi, just on the distribution models, I know it's a little bit of a tricky question because each and every company have their own distribution model. But in a nutshell, can you give our attendees just a light as to what exists there with regards to distributors models? In the case they want to be an LPG distributor, what is available for them?
Okay. All right, thanks, Khadi. I think this basically talks to a point that you mentioned in your intro, where you're talking about this is an industry where there's potential for for other players to come in, and I think there is great opportunity for that. And I think first of all, I think I need to explain what we mean by distributor. So we have a concept of what we call a distributor, but I think this means different things in different companies. And I think it's important to contextualize. So what a core part of us operating, we have a cylinder, big cylinder business. We also sell LPG in bulk. But as part of our cylinder business, which is the biggest part of our business presently, it's actually around 70% if we look at our entire cylinder market in its entirety. And how we actually then market and distribute our cylinders is we have filling centers. We have different filling centers across different parts of the country, some even cross-border as well, few cross-border. But essentially a typical filling plant is all the elements that Belinda mentioned. So you will definitely have a tank there, you'll have some filling scales, and it has to be sized properly and installed properly to make sure that it adheres to all the regulatory requirements and all the compliance requirements. And there's various certificates and permits which are renewable annually. And you basically then need to have people with the capability operating those facilities. So we have a model where for most of the plants, especially the larger ones, we operate them ourselves. So our company staff are actually located at those facilities or operate them. When the bulk tanker comes in, the product is offloaded. Then we have the fillers, which actually then fill this product from the storage tanks into the cylinders, and then they go out to the market. But then we also have a business model where and this is largely for the smaller plants, and also this is also where we are looking at future development, where instead of having our staff operating the facility, we would actually have a third-party independent company really stationed at that facility, at that filling plant, responsible for the filling operation and the marketing and distribution of our branded cylinders. And this is what, in this context, that's what we're referring to as a distributor. And it's important because I think some other companies do have a similar concept, but it might be called different names. So this is our dual operating model, if I can call it that. And I think in terms of conceptually, it's not really that much different from a service station concept. You mentioned I come from the fuel industry, so I'll use that analogy. So in a service station, typically what you would have a company-owned, company-operated filling station, and you also have a company-owned, distributor-operated, dealer-operated service station. As the end user, you wouldn't see the difference, but what essentially means is that the company owns the tanks and the equipment on that facility, but instead of the company doing the activities on the site, they actually are partnering with a third party. So it's a similar concept, except here is a third party who's doing the filling operation. But to the end consumer, it's the image is the same. It's our cylinders that they're actually using.
Okay. So here I am, Tshilidzi. I'm an entrepreneur and I want to get into LPG distribution. And we all know there's barriers to this industry, or at least barriers to entry. As an entrepreneur, a woman, a young person, anybody who wants to join this industry, what are those barriers that I need to be aware of? And how can how can I navigate through those barriers so that I can participate successfully in this industry?
A very, very a good question. And I think, yes, you're right. I do believe that some barriers continue to exist. but some of them I think are possibly easier to address than others. I think if I can start first and foremost, I think in terms of the core competencies of individuals, I believe that in general, we are having an economy where people actually are starting to have the requisite skills to, to enter the industry and to actually have the capability to run operations and manage operations. However, what is still remaining a challenge, which I believe is an inhibitor to that, is actually still remains access to funding. It's not unique to this industry. I believe it's it's across all industry, but real access to funding really still remains a concern. Not everybody has access to capital. First of all, to make the necessary investments that one would need to actually operate in the space that our company is operating in, being able to source products, be able to either contract out, transport to get the product to where it's required, the capital to actually make an investment in the filling plant, and adhere to all of those elements that Belinda mentioned. So, I mean, you're talking about installation of equipment, being able to do all the work to actually get the clearance, the EIAs, the MHI licenses, scope the property properly, and actually have the facility in place. So I think funding is a challenge, or rather a barrier to that. But also at the same time is that let's assume then you have managed to source the capital to make that that type of an investment. The stock. I mentioned that a significant part of our business is actually cylinders. We sell our LPG in cylinders, and the cylinder is not, the metal is not a cheap, is not cheap. And you're not talking about a handful of cylinders to be able to sell and really market and make sufficient revenue and be sustainable in the industry. We're talking about tens of thousands of cylinders that you actually require to be able to be a marketer in this space. And again, I believe that the capital to be able to make an investment in that asset, which is a tool of trade. Without a cylinder, you can't make the sale, is also a challenge. And then, but also the product itself. Belinda, will differ with you when you're talking about the cost of your products. Just joking, but honestly speaking, the cost of the product, and we are benchmark. I mean, it is a product which is presently a significant amount is imported, but even if it was sourced locally, it's not a product that comes for free. So the cost of the product itself is, as an entrepreneur, especially that initial stock becomes is challenging. So being able to have access to the working capital to at least get that initial supply, I think is also important in having one actually being able to operate and being able to get this product out in the market. So I think for me that is possibly the one element, and also obviously being able to have the right funding to make sure that you are able to continually do the maintenance and get the operations of the business going, have the right people on board to actually run the operations. This is payroll cost, which is something that at the beginning, to attract the right people and retain them could also be challenging. So retaining them and having the ongoing funds to be able to retain the people is also I think it's an important consideration to be made and to be taken into account.
So on that funding barrier, this year we got the opportunity to meet the colleagues from SEFA, and later on you will see in the agenda that we have Don Mashele here to tell us about the opportunities for funding, and we hope that will maybe help assist at least in that barrier just a little bit for many of us who wants to get into this business as entrepreneurs. So stay tuned, colleagues, and don't go anywhere so that you can listen to those opportunities for funding for yourself. Tshilidzi, we will come a little bit back later to you. The next speaker is somebody very interesting in this industry. Nomkhosi Makhathini from Easigas. She is the legal, the executive director and the legal advisor, if I may use that word, or legal manager. Now, Nomkhosi, this is interesting though. You are a lawyer, and generally lawyers are regarded as pillars everywhere. I mean, that's why they are so expensive here. You know how much I complain about our legal bills. And then you are here in this industry when you could be making, I believe, a lot of money elsewhere, charging us a lot of money per hour. What does a legal person do in this industry, in the LPG industry? And I just have to mention back to people that we are a highly regulated industry, meaning we are at the radar of any regulator, competition people, information regulators, everybody is watching us. So a person like you, I believe, becomes a necessity. Tell us why.
Hi, Hadi and colleagues. Thank you very much for this interesting discussion. Yes, a lawyer in a wholesale LPG industry is also a pillar in a sense that, as you've mentioned, this is a highly regulated industry. And believe it or not, there are laws in this country and they work, and we are all custodians of the law and in ensuring that law is implemented in all our areas of business. So the function of legal services in a business such as an LPG wholesaler is basically ensuring that our business does its duties and obligations to its customers responsibly by basically implementing the correct laws, ensuring that they are adhered to. It's not just somebody that's running around with the red pen, marking what's wrong, marking who's doing what's wrong, but it's basically ensuring that the business creatively combines the law with the commercial aspects of the business to give the outcome that are responsible to the consumer and the entire stakeholders. So if I may make an example, as you've mentioned, it's highly regulated. LPG wholesalers are regulated by the Petroleum Products Act and a whole lot of other acts. As a business, we're required to have requisite licensing and permits in place, such as your wholesale license. And we are supposed to basically run our business legally and responsibly. And that's, in a nutshell, is a function of a lawyer within an LPG business.
Okay. So just you took us through some of the regulations around the industry, but what are other legal frameworks that we have to be mindful of in this industry?
Yes. So I'll take a very interesting case that most of LPG wholesalers know of because you've been badly beaten. Tshilidzi, you and I are in there. The Competition Commission in 2015 initiated an investigation into the LPG wholesalers. This is public knowledge on the allegations of collusion to fix a deposit price. Our defenses have been made known before the commission. We obviously do not agree that there was any agreement between us as the wholesalers in terms of the deposit. Why am I mentioning this case? It's because it's one of the examples of how regulators are zoomed in on our operations, how they want to see our business being correctly run and regulated. So one of the frameworks of legislation that, for example, you should look out into is the Competition Act. We are all gathered here. Some of us are competitors. Totalgaz is my good friend, but we are competitors. And there's certain things that we cannot talk about in industry participations like these. We cannot talk about pricing openly because at the end of the day, we are competitors and the consumer is the one that must be protected in all our discussions. So some of the regulatory frameworks, definitely the Competition Act, PAM, you obviously know this as well. So there's things that we can do when we are gathered as competitors. even in industry associations like this, it's important that we, observe compliance moments. And you mentioned that we will discuss this and this and this in the agenda, but we will not talk about and carve out the aspects of competition that are not to be discussed publicly or together as competitors. Does that make sense?
Yeah, most definitely. As a person who often gets accused of trying to avoid discussion using competition law or, POPI Act, I certainly do understand this conundrum, and it does become difficult for us, people who are trying to disseminate information to possible or potential entrepreneurs, because we can't just be careless or reckless about the information that we give, because we do have a responsibility, one, to the organizations that we work for, to the regulations of this country, but to the very same person we are trying to help. We can't unnecessarily mislead them with certain information when we know the stumbling blocks that are brought by the legalities that governs this industry. But there is one element, though, that I think affects this industry from end consumer all the way to a big or small business. It becomes an illegal filling issue. As a legal person who can navigate through this conversation safely for us here, tell us how this is the stumbling block to this industry, and how an organization that is faced with illegal activities can deal with this.
It is quite topical indeed, Hadi. The Department of Minerals and Energy Resources also mentioned it in its rollout strategy that illegal operators pose a threat to the LPG industry. We're not opposed to positive competition, but as Tshilidzi said, cylinder stock metal is not a cheap commodity. The wholesalers put in lots of capital to invest in cylinders. So when they get into the market, they expect a return on that investment. What happens with illegal operators is that they basically hijack, if I may use that term, cylinder stock of the rightful owners. The cylinders get into the market, they never return to the owners because illegal operators take those, they hoard them, they fill them, and then distribute them in the market without the consent of the real owners of metal. How cylinders get into the market, as we've said, they are purchased by wholesalers or whoever is interested in investing in cylinders. The regulatory framework suggests that no person may fill a cylinder without the permission of the owner. So there is a dual ownership model when it comes to cylinders. And a consumer, for example, can get into a shop, a retailer, and buy their own cylinder. They can go to whoever wholesaler or distributor and fill that cylinder. The other model is the wholesalers buy their cylinders and they expect to fill those cylinders for distribution in the market. So when the cylinders don't return, then obviously there is no return, or there is it's a stumbling block in the growth of the LPG industry. So the regulations that govern this is the Occupational Health and Safety Act. The regulations under which is the Pressure Regulations Act, are incorporated in the Occupational Health and Safety Act, which then determine that no one can fill someone else's cylinders without their consent. This is also regulated in terms of the Safety Standards Act and the SANS codes. So to spread the message, and I think we need each and every one of us who is interested in the LPG industry to spread the message, to say illegal operations or illegal filling is totally a no-no for many reasons. One, as a consumer, you could get short-charged. People that hijack cylinders in the market don't care about them. They don't care about putting in enough investment to maintain those cylinders so that they are safe and They don't care whether they are overfilled or underfilled as long as they make that extra revenue for themselves. So there is a risk for the consumer in that you could get a cylinder that's underfilled, or you could get a cylinder that is overfilled, therefore posing a safety risk on the consumer. So we should all work together to actually curb this scourge. There are regulations that guard it. Khadi and her team are also the custodians of ensuring that they work with the Department of Employment and Labour to do the inspections. Even the DMRE has proposed in its strategy that it will incapacitate the energy inspectors to be peace officers so that they can actually provide some sort of conviction when it comes to issues of illegal operations. So there's legal framework, and we can use that to our advantage.
Thank you, Nomkhosi. Just a word of advice from for the aspiring LPG entrepreneurs as a legal person. In closing, what would you say to them?
Let's get the basics right first. What do I mean by this? In I think a society that is rife with corruption and just the shredding of best practices, we need businesses that are duly compliant, businesses that are well run, businesses that comply to good corporate standards. Basics would mean your company is duly registered, for example, with the companies and for CIPC, I'm going to shorten it. It will mean also that your permits, such as your wholesale licenses, if you choose to be a wholesaler, for example, you obtain those. It would also mean that you are cognizant of where you get your product from. You get your product from certified suppliers, but also it would mean that you are cognizant of your contractual obligations. The minute you decide to be a supplier, it means you are responsible to the community around you, you're responsible to the consumer, and therefore you've got obligations, not just contractually, but just in terms of safety and all of those things. So as an entrepreneur, make sure that your contracts are in order. Make sure that your business is duly compliant by ensuring that you've got proper licensing and that you are responsible in terms of where you obtain your product. If you do not know where to get help, for example, with things like contract, because if you're starting out, let's be clear, you're not always going to be able to pay a lawyer. These things are expensive, but there are organizations and even law firms that do a bit of pro bono work. By that, I mean they do some work freely to benefit those who can't afford legal fees. It's a small spectrum, but there is help out there. Rather ask and get the assistance you need to put the good structures in place.
Thank you for that advice. Just to our attendees, as we're wrapping up some of these discussions here in the panel, please place your questions in the chat box, and we see how we can direct them to the panel after their closing remarks just now. Back to Samantha, in that legal element or legal node or compliance node, just in general, appliances and hardware of this industry are also regulated, which is something that people don't know. Earlier, you spoke about LPG permit licensing, SANS requirements, and all that. So what do you say in general to people who want to come into this industry, to operate in the hardware and appliance industry? What do you tell them? Just in closing.
Hi, just in that closing, it's, yeah, so any gas product that is a physical working product, which is a cylinder included, you know, when you talk about gas appliances, it's not only a stove or a cooker, which people would maybe refer to as an appliance, but it's also a cylinder. A cylinder is also a working product. And in so those products need to be certified. A lot of people do not do that, or maybe they are not aware of it. But in the designing part of these appliances, they have to be compliant to these standards, and they go through a set of tests that are there for the consumer's protection as well, mostly for that. And in these testings, you have to comply to these tests and pass the tests, and then from there it goes to LPG itself. LPG reviews these test reports to see that your product is compliant, and only from there do you get a LPG permit. Once LPG is satisfied with all your requirements that they need. And then also from a product's perspective, like if customers want to see that, normally in order to have the LPG logo placed onto your packaging of your product, you would be required to have an LPG permit in order to have that logo on your packaging. And that is one way also for a consumer to know that this product is compliant to all standards that's required for that specific product, and also for cylinders. Cylinders might not always have packaging, but they will sometimes also have a SABS stamp on the cylinder.
Thank you for that, Samantha. I reiterate, a safe appliance permitted product is a safe product for the consumer. So the consumers need to know that they cannot just buy any LPG product just because it's cheap out there. They have to ensure that that product is also a safe product, and the onus is on you as a consumer to know that you are buying the safely permitted product. The OSHAC puts that responsibility on you as a consumer. However, the OSHAC also puts, and that is through PER, pressure equipment regulations, put the responsibilities on the distributor or an importer or this person who sells that appliance to ensure that that product is permitted accordingly. There has been prosecutions related to people who sell unpermitted product, unpermitted cylinders, and they have been successfully prosecuted. So just know that you need to, as an entrepreneur, ensure that your product is permitted accordingly with different SAN standards. And contact us in the case where you are in doubt, whether as a consumer or as a prospective importer or manufacturer of products. My colleagues will put our contact details later there on the chat box. Barbara, we said we'll come to you earlier. So bringing product supply closer to the consumer. And I saw Lorraine's comment about the 3% there in the chat box. 3% is formally the refinery production, which is no longer the case with regards to LPG supply in the country. A while back, that's what used to be the production of LPG out of the refineries. But anyway, like we said, the situation has changed. But Barbara, there's still that little bit of a challenge of bringing product closer, even closer to the consumer, i.e. majority of the consumer are inland. And by inland, we mean Gauteng, Northwest, Northern Province, Free State, away from the coast. A lot of companies are taking care of the coast. Then we have issues around product availability closer here in the inland region. How is Petregaz, I believe Transnet as well, addressing that issue in closing?
Well, in closing, Khadi, so Transnet, Petregaz and Bidvest, they are in the process of final approval of a project which involves a 5,000 to 8,000 ton storage facility. This facility will be housed in the Highveld, and I think the aim that we've got a greatly reduced traffic on our roads, and as you mentioned, just making LPG far more accessible to inland distributors. So we're expecting the rollout of the project to take place towards the end of 2024 and the beginning of 2025. It's a rail-fed facility, so it will act as a storage facility for the inland consumers, and it will facilitate the growth of the market by providing quicker turnaround, and just hence being able to service the industry. So the project will, just in a nutshell, connect the port in Richards Bay to the inland storage facility, and we anticipate moving between 12 and 14,000 tons of gas through the terminal as a result of this project.
Okay, thank you very much. We look forward to that project and bringing products very closer to the consumer. Like I said, I'm from Toit, so I need my supply very hastily. Belinda, sorry, not Barbara. Belinda, tell us how Fueltec as a company is providing or is a go-to company for that turnkey solution in getting my LPG filling plant, LPG depot, and you should know that my retirement, definitely I'll be running my own LPG facility. I won't tell you where, just in case you go and steal my location. So Barbara, tell us how Fueltec can help us in closing.
Fueltec has years of experience in establishing feasibility. We can provide the advice and guidelines one would require to get started, which is followed up with estimates of what a depot would cost that is suited to the customer's need. We can provide all the aspects that make up a depot, including civil, electrical, storage, mechanical components, including pipes and scales, firefighting equipment, as mentioned before. And we are industry compliant in all steps of the process and supply installations that conform to the minimum requirements for the relevant standards codes. So that's where we fit in.
Very fitting. So there are many organizations out there like Fueltec. So do your due diligence. I would hate for my team to come and report to me that an attendee of this webinar has erected an illegal filling plant or an illegal depot, because the flip side of the coin is that you will have to remove it. Is that decommission? You said, Barbara, that's the right word to use. You will have to decommission it. It always pains me when that order comes out of the Department of Labor. It doesn't come easy. They don't just make that decision. There's a lot of process that takes place, but even that process is very expensive to go through. So please get it right. Like Nomkhosi said, get it right from day one. You better be a slow starter than an illegal starter in the first, or non-compliant starter in the first place. So get those steps right. There are many organizations like Fueltec out there that you can contact right in South Africa. You don't have to go to overseas to get this expertise. They are right here in South Africa. Tshilidzi, I'm going to challenge you because I like doing that. But as well, you will be addressing the challenge that we got from the department earlier. And I will tell you for free, Tshilidzi, the minister clapped me very good 2 weeks back when we were in the gender ministerial committee, and says, LPG industry, you are slow. You are not doing enough. So I'm saying to you, Tshilidzi, is this industry really male dominated? And what will it take to change that? Remember, your answers is recorded, so I'm going to use it for my next ministers meeting.
I think the safe answer is to say that depends. So and really, but that is the reality of it. So I think let's start with ourselves as a wholesaler. And then you mentioned it yourself, the ladies sitting around the room. We have, I think there are probably five, I would say, wholesalers and distributors that are presently sitting on the SAPIA LPG committee. SAPIA is the South African Petroleum Industry Association. And of those 5 companies, 3 are headed by women. And in fact, one of those companies is actually 100% owned by women. One of the smaller, it's a smaller company, but it's a company that's really doing well and has been in an industry for a while. And then this is definitely something which was not the case 10 years ago. And but then when you then drill down into the companies in terms of ownership, I think some of the companies here do actually have ownership, black women ownership in their ownership structures as well. But when you drill down into the companies themselves, I think it's difficult to say. I think, and in that context, I can only speak for our company. And I think proud to say that when we're looking at our permanent staff workforce, we've got about 50% women, actually more than, slightly higher than 50% women within the organization. But again, you drill down again, looking at the activities and the roles and the areas that these women are responsible for, or the divisions that they're in. That's where you start to see the skewness of the picture, where we still have, you know, in the sort of technical operational role, we still have higher male dominance, but then in the sort of support roles and services oriented types of roles, that's where most of the women are actually still placed. But I don't necessarily think that this is a challenge that's unique to this particular industry. I believe it's a global challenge, and we do need to actually address that. And how we are ourselves are trying to address that is that through the pipeline, in terms of how we then recruit, trying to get the young engineers and the technicians into the more technical types of roles when we actually go out in the market. And with time, that actually will change. And I think even if you're looking at, and the same goes for the management committee. Our management committee at present, as we speak, for our company, actually it's actually gender bias, where we have majority of women and actually only one man. But what is that man responsible for? He is the one that's responsible for the operations. So these are things that actually need to change. We have people under him. Some of them are actually a woman. And so, you know, so it's things that we really try to address in the long term. I believe we do have, we still do have work to do. And I think really it starts organically within our individual organizations as well, as to how we recruit. And I think I'll go to a point that Pam mentioned earlier when she's talking about positive discrimination. Even though I wouldn't necessarily use the word discrimination, but I think it's positive, you know, being conscious of the decisions that we need to make and how we actually bring people, and actually being open up and transparent about it within the organizations. I think it's important. And also, for me, when I mentioned going into our, I think I'm also proud to say that when we talked about our distributor model, where we're actually now saying we're partnering with, this model allows us to partner with third-party independent companies to run and operate a filling plant. For me, that's also an area where transformation can actually happen, where we will have women participating. We do have actually one of such plant, which is actually co-owned by a husband and wife. And in fact, we do have another smaller facility as well, where we actually have a husband and wife operation. But at this stage, we don't yet have one that is actually fully 100% operated by men. But this is certainly things that we're actually looking at going forward. And that being said, I think I also didn't mention this earlier. But that being said, I think it's also still important to appreciate that we are in business. And when we do go into these partnerships, it has to be one of mutual cooperation and one of mutual commercial viability. So we're not necessarily wanting to do handouts, because we believe that we want to partner with people who are serious about operating and really want to be able to get to a point where they're able to stand up on their own without reliance. So the commercial viability for us as well, and where we actually then come to the party is making the investments in all those elements that I believe that are barriers to entry. So we will make the investments in the equipment. We'll make the investments in the cylinders. We would actually even provide the maintenance, the ongoing maintenance of the facilities, and actually ensure that everything adheres to the local regulations and standard. But again, the person operating it on a day-to-day basis is the one that also needs to make sure that they're adhering to, the standards and local regulations, because we are not there to actually, police that on a day-to-day basis. But in terms of the integrity of the facility itself, we would obviously make that. So for me, I think this is how we start to then bridge the gap between this being still, I think to a large extent, a male-dominated industry, and mainstreaming women into this sector. It has to be internal, but also in terms of how we do business dealings as well, and how who we partner with.
Thank you, Tshilidzi, very much for that. I was trying to check if I can see the attendees. There's a lady that I've been speaking to who told me to watch the space, because in this time next year, I will be hosting her as a success story for running her own LPG depot and filling plant. And, I do believe her. Mashudu, I won't expose you. I won't say your surname. But I do believe it. And I do believe you, and I do hear it in your voice when you talk about it. And I do appreciate that you contacted LPGSA to say, I need help. And we do get a lot of those people, Tshilidzi, who say, I need help in terms of understanding the regulations. I see a lot of question, Nontle, about the regulations pertaining to cylinders. Abdi, Don, we are gonna steal 5 minutes of your time, but we'll give it back. And we're just gonna go through Q&As. Tony, do you wanna take questions for the ladies from the public?
I can definitely do that. I would say that the question you're receiving the most is with regards to distributorship. So if I could get our wholesalers to please comment on what is the process for, firstly, if I, hypothetically speaking, wanted to become a distributor, what is the process that I would need to follow? Do you guys have, step-by-step guides that you give out to people so that they don't miss any processes? And yeah, just what are the general requirements or things that you look out for when receiving applications for distributorship? Thank you. That'll be for our wholesalers, so Tshilidzi and Nomkhosi as well. Yes.
Let me start, since this is what I had already alluded to in the presentation, but I think that the question is now more specific in terms of the steps. So the steps, yes, we certainly do follow a process internally, but we don't necessarily have a published guide to give to a third party out there to say this is what you need to do, because it's really an internal process that we actually follow when we are partnering with a distributor. So coming cold to us, yes, of course, we are open to cold calling, approaches as well. But essentially, the first and foremost is that if there's already a potential market that has been identified, yes, that's obviously the first step, an identification of the market. If not, then it's something that we could work collectively on, identification of a market. And that means understanding, location, what is the current demand? Is it a new market? And who are the players there? What type of end users are they? What is the potential today, and what is the expected future potential? So that's the first step. And then the second element of that is really then about what you would do in any sort of embarking on a new investment or a new project. So you need to take the consideration of, given the market, if you had to then, can we identify a land? Is there land available? Can you identify the land and the zoning, all the things that come with that? The zoning, the EIAs, the MHI licenses that are required and that. And then based on the demand and the expected frequency of that demand, we would then do the correct sizing of the tank, as well as the number of scales, for example, that need to be installed, which obviously then, that's basically then what we'll say the size of the filling plant itself. And other considerations that were mentioned earlier as to the layout of where the filling platform is, how does the truck come in to do the offloading of the bulk? Where do you actually then load the cylinders onto the truck? So the site itself, its establishment and the costs associated with that, we need to be mapped out. And then also importantly, which is going to be your point of origin of where you are sourcing the product. We talked about 2 import hubs currently. We've got Saldanha Bay and we've got Richards Bay. And then we've got some inland refineries as well that are still actually operating. So where is the closest supply hub is a consideration, because then there's also then cost associated with delivering product from supply to destination. And then the cost of that is also influenced by how much are you actually dropping off. Are you able to offload a full tank, or do you only drop a little bit and then go elsewhere, which all factors into the costs. And all of that basically needs to be put into an economic model. So basically we would do a simulation of an income statement, both for ourselves as the wholesaler and for the entrepreneur as the distributor. The income statements on both sides actually need to make sense, which basically then gets us to a point of landing on the margin for that. So I forgot another element is that I mentioned that the investment in cylinders, then we'll allocate cylinders based on the current demand, and obviously as demand increases going forward, we would allocate more cylinders and so forth. And then from a commercial point of view, I think I would say there's probably 4 main broad types of contracts that we would enter into. The first one is obviously on the land itself or the property. We need to enter either with the lease agreement with the landlord if it's not owned by ourselves or the entrepreneur, to make sure that we can, and that has to be long-term, to make sure that we can actually do the installation and obviously operate there in the long term, because it wouldn't make sense to do an installation that would only be viable for a couple of years and then we have to take that off. Those installations are costly, so that would have to be some sort of a long-term lease if it doesn't already belong to either party. And then in terms of the commercial agreement itself, the way we have it is basically 3 broad agreements. I mentioned that this has to be commercially viable for us. So we would be the exclusive supplier of the gas to that facility, so that we'll have an exclusivity supply agreement for duration, maybe a period of 5 years typically is what we work with to start with, because market dynamics, typically after 5 years, you will need to review anyway. So, and then we would also then enter into an agreement to make the entrepreneur, to give rather the entrepreneur the right to actually fill our cylinders. And I think this was alluded to earlier. So this is the agreement that actually says, you entrepreneur, Tony Nguni, you are actually allowed to fill our cylinders at this specific plant, only our cylinders. And this is actually what makes the arrangement legit. You are not filling our cylinders without our authorizations. And I think it's also important that it's our branded cylinders. You can't fill the cylinders of other companies at this particular facilities. And then the last one is then the agreement for you to actually then have the right to actually distribute our cylinders, marketing them really on our behalf. You're the one filling them, and then you can actually then sell the LPG to the end user at a price to the market that you that is viable for you, but obviously within the constraints or the confines of the maximum retail price, depending on the area. And of course, the price that we supply that LPG to you is going to depend. I mentioned a key element of that is the where we are sourcing the product, because we obviously need to factor transport costs into that, as well as a bit of us being able to cover a bit of our operating costs to serve you as the distributor. And then I mentioned we will do the ongoing maintenance. We have regulated and mandatory revalidation of tanks, for example, that's required periodically. There's also certifications and verifications that are required on the scales themselves, and the maintaining of the technical elements of the plant, if I can call it that. But in terms of general housekeeping, admin related, that would then be the responsibility of the distributor. So those are, in our view, the key elements. So it's really I can't give you a step by step to say do this, do this, do this. It's really about that commercial viability. And we also do a general due diligence, but this is something we do on all our suppliers. There's an internal due diligence that's almost like I would call it a compliance due diligence, which is internal, that we ourselves do on any third party that we engage with, to make sure that we are dealing with organizations that have a good integrity on top of that. So that I hope that sort of clarifies it to a certain extent.
100%, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head. I hope the person that asked that question, they got all the info they needed. But a follow-up question that I received was, who would be the relevant person to contact at Totalgaz or at your company when wanting to inquire about possible distribution chances, or building a relationship, just to see if it's feasible, as you said, for both you and them as entrepreneurs?
Hadi, you let me know whether I'm allowed to answer that question, because I believe this is not a marketing sort of stance. Yeah. I don't want to use it as that. But if I'm allowed to, I'm certainly happy to share. But we have is typically our sales and marketing manager, but we actually do also have a customer services division, and the information is I mean, we can either share it after this forum, but it's certainly information that we are willing to share. In terms of how to contact us, we have the sales and marketing unit that typically is the starting point for all of that.
Okay, awesome.
I think Tony, it is safe to say for many organizations or companies, that is the first place to start. Their marketing and sales units, their business development sales units, and what is important for you to also remember as our attendees is that different companies offers different models. So Tshilidzi tried to explain an overall generalization of how things work. And what I liked about her, process that she kind of like described, it literally pertains to the whole value chain, the way she explained it. So you literally are no longer going to run into this business blindly. So I must say, most definitely do contact the sales department of each organization, and they will help you. There's business development. I mean, many of these organizations have websites that you can contact. So do go there. Tony, I think we are running out of time, and we stole a lot of time from one of the biggest barriers to entry, which is financing. Maybe we should get back to there. So colleagues, all your questions that we are seeing, we will definitely endeavor to respond to them in writing via email, i.e. all the people who are registered will consolidate all these Q&As and send them those responses to you. The next speaker, without wasting much of your time, and ladies, thank you very much for availing yourself and for sharing your knowledge. We really appreciate you. I know you are always there whenever we ask questions. What colleagues don't know or attendees don't know is that LPGSA doesn't know everything. But when we are faced with a question, we actually pick up a call and say, Sis Nomkhosi, help me out. Tshilidzi, help me out. Belinda, what does the consumer have to do? Or what's this prospective entrepreneur supposed to do? Barbara, people need their supply, and people don't know that in the background we do that, and that's what makes you, our partners, you, our colleagues, the pillar of this industry and the pillar to this association. We really do appreciate you and availing yourself. Samantha, like, remember that kettle? Don't forget about it. I will appreciate it. And just moving to the next speaker. Abdidon, are you ready?
Yes, good afternoon, Kari. I'm ready. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. So it has been said over and over in the past hour or so that one of the barriers to this entry, to the entry of this industry, is access to finance. And we heard you from the previous conversations, and we went to find the Small Enterprise Finance Agency, which is SEFA, and Abdidon Mashele is here, who is the HOD for business development there, is here to tell us about SEFA. Thank you.
No, thanks, Oskadi, and good afternoon to everybody on the platform. I'll share my presentation quickly, and then you'll tell me once you can see my screen. I'm trying to share. Is it showing?
Not yet on my side. Something's happening. Yep, we see it.
All right, slideshow.
Yes.
All right, quickly, we've got about 30 minutes. I have to leave at 1, but I'm sure we'll be done by then. But thanks for this opportunity. As I was listening, you know, the panelists and the questions, most of the things that were said actually makes this presentation much more relevant in terms of access to finance, in terms of what you need to do as a business person if you want to go into this sector. And it's two big things, really. The issue is about compliance, because this industry is highly regulated. And I think what Tshilidzi also said from Totalgaz, when she was outlining those steps in terms of the value chain, is actually talking to a viable business. So if you're compliant, you've got a potentially viable business, funding should be easy. So what I'm sharing with you, colleagues, are the services, products and services that we have at SEFA. Quick background, SEFA, those who do not know, we are an implementing agency of the Department of Small Business Development. Together with our sister organization, SEDA, we provide support to small, medium, and micro enterprises, as well as cooperatives. We are implementing agencies of the Department of Small Business Development. This slide is a busy slide, but what is relevant for this webinar is that SEFA, we provide our funding using different channels. We've got what we call a direct lending channel, where we provide funding directly to SMMEs and cooperatives, and these are the entrepreneurs sitting on this webinar. And we also have a wholesale lending channel where we work with intermediaries, and these intermediaries are in a form, I mean, they provide some form of financial support to SMMEs, so we can partner with intermediaries that will play in that space. But for the purpose of this discussion and the platform, I'll focus on our direct lending, because this is where we provide funding. I think it was Tshilidzi mentioning that one of the barriers to entry is access to finance. So through direct lending at SEFA, we are able to provide funding to a maximum of 15 million rands to anyone who want to start a business, you want to expand a business, or you want to purchase a business. So we cover all phases of businesses, so to speak. We provide debt funding, which means we don't have equity instruments. So if we provide you with debt funding, one of the things that you will have to do from your side is to give us a viable funding proposal that we'll have to look at, conduct some due diligence. If we're happy with the application, then we'll be able to support. So debt funding instruments under direct lending, we've got asset finance. Asset finance, that is where we provide funding to purchase whatever form of an asset. It could be a tank, it could be cylinders in this discussion, it could be trucks, whatever the case is, any form of asset with a unique serial number, we're able to provide that through our asset finance instrument. Like I said before, our maximum is 15 million rands. The next instrument that we do have is a term loan. So through term loans, we provide funding for working capital. You know, when you start a business like this, you will need finance granted, but in addition to that, you might need some form of working capital to run the business. So we provide that through a term loan facility. Some of our clients that we they've got contracts, they've got purchase orders, and they need working capital to service those orders. We provide that support through our bridging loan or contract financing. The last instrument here is a revolving loan. We also have those clients. You might have, for instance, a bigger contract with a time duration. Let's say it's a 5-year contract, for argument's sake. The value of the contract could be, say, 20 million rands. But within that duration and within that threshold, you will be receiving multiple purchase orders. So what we do, we provide something alongside like an overdraft type of a facility. Though we're not a bank, it's not an overdraft, but what it means is that each time you apply, the first time you apply, we'll do a thorough due diligence. When you come back for a second application, a second purchase order, we just make it easier for you, just revolving that kind of a facility. Eligibility criteria, if you go through those bullets, you know, and listening at the type of audience we have today, you know, most of you guys will be eligible to apply for SEFA funding. One, you must be a natural person, a South African citizen. The second one is that the business that you operate must that you own must operate within the borders of the country. And then 95% of the employees, if you happen to have employees, must be South African. And it must be, there must be someone who is the owner manager of that business. So what we don't encourage is to have a business where you're doing this thing part-time. So if it's only one person, you have to be full-time in the business. You've got more than one shareholder, at least one shareholder has to be there on a daily basis. The other one is that we are a development funding institution. So we've got certain things that we need to achieve as a development funding institution. So you need to be talking to those kind of things when you make an application. What is relevant in this discussion is that, one, we've got what you call priority target groups, and one of our priority target groups are women-owned and managed businesses. So we check those kind of things. 51% of the business must be owned by Black entrepreneurs. The target market, I think I've touched into this to say we do have designated groups. As you've seen, you can see there women-owned and managed businesses are some of the things really. I mean, some of the things that we need to chase as a DFI to make sure that we support women-owned and managed businesses that they enter into the space of entrepreneurship with the right kind of support. The priority sectors, if you can see below there, we have got those priority target sectors or industries, and this one, you know, the gas one is one of those. The exclusions, I won't waste time really in terms of this. We'll share this presentation because in terms of the exclusions, listening at what has been transpiring when this webinar started and the kind of people we have, you know, that the sector that we target, there will be nothing really that can be an exclusion from a SEFA point of view. For instance, you can see one of our exclusions. It says it's a speculative real estate. This is not an industry that we're talking about here. It's not an arms and ammunition industry. It's not in the same industry, that kind of a thing. So we do have exclusions that you need to check before you submit an application. What could be relevant really? It could be when you have maybe had funding through IDC and you're in the IDC delinquent register, because we're a wholly owned subsidiary of the IDC. We'll check those kind of things. The other one is if you're under debt review, you have not been rehabilitated, we do check those kind of things. You are not compliant in terms of taxation and other things, but like I said when I started, you know, for you to enter into this industry, one of the things that gets checked is compliance, you know, industry compliance and any other form of business or regulatory compliance. This funding template is crucial. I was listening. The closing remarks from MD of Totalgaz, Tshilidzi, when she was outlining the steps that you need to take. You know, it actually talks to some of these things here. When you submit an application for funding at SEFA, we check your application or your pitch in line with this funding template. One, you need to give us information about the company information. It has to be CIPC registered. And the other one is about the shareholders information, who's the shareholder, the structure of the company, the operation, the products, the target market, marketing, sales. So I won't repeat because I was listening attentively and I realized that what Totalgaz will do or to conduct due diligence is more or less similar to what we do. So I will share this presentation. When you are at the point where you're saying you want to apply for SEFA funding at some point, and we will need you to provide us with a business plan, stroke funding proposal, you need to cover this kind of things. We've got what you call dedicated programs to support certain sectors in the market. We have got a scheme that support entrepreneurs with disabilities. This is a scheme where we provide funding up to 15 million rands. The difference really between this and the other funding instruments that we do provide is that here we provide funding at prime +5. So if you understand really the cost of money, given the fact that amongst other things now we are on the phase where interest rates are going up, you know, getting funding up to a maximum of 15 million rands at prime -5, it's quite affordable indeed. So this scheme is targeted at entrepreneurs with disabilities. We also provide business development support. It could be issues around compliance, etc., etc. We have another scheme targeted at military veterans. Same design. It's also up to 15 million rand, but this one we provide funding at a fixed rate of 9%. This one is for those businesses that are in the manufacturing sector. I'm just sharing, it might be relevant, but maybe not for this sector, unless probably you're coming into the issues where you'll be doing appliances, you know, you'll be manufacturing appliances, that kind of a thing. So we have got a scheme called the Small Enterprise Manufacturing Support Program. Here again, we provide funding up to 15 million. What's the difference between this and our other schemes? This scheme has got a grant element. So 20% of what you're looking for can be a grant up to a maximum of 2 million rands. So let's take a simple example. You're looking for R1 million. We put your funding into a formula. You can get 200,000 as a grant, and then 800,000 rand will be a loan. The loan portion, we charge only prime. You know, we can't say prime plus some margin of risk. So this is a scheme dedicated at entrepreneurs who are in the manufacturing space. Again, is to purchase equipment, working capital, and then anything around compliance. The last but not least scheme that I would love to share is what we call the Township and Rural Entrepreneurship Program. Here we provide funding to those businesses that operate in township and rural areas. I'm just thinking as I was listening, following the webinar, you know, those guys that are at the retail phase of the value chain. You know, where we buy our cylinders, you know, it could be a filling station, it could be whatever it is, but those guys that are in the retail phase and they're operating in township and rural areas were able to provide funding through this TRAP program. Here we provide funding, the maximum here is R1 million, and then out of that R1 million, 50% of that can be a grant, and the loan portion is priced at 5%. So these are the schemes that we have, and this one relevant for those to those businesses that operate in township and rural areas. In terms of who's eligible for the TRAP program, again, it must be a CIPC registered company. If you are not CIPC registered, we work with our sister organization CEDA to make sure that you are compliant. The next requirement there to be eligible, it must be 100% owned by a South African. 70% of the employees have to be South African. The balance 30%, if not South African, they need to have a valid work permits and other things around SARS compliance, UIF. You know, make sure that you're compliant before we can provide the funding. Again, if you're not compliant, we assist you in terms of getting your ducks in a row in terms of compliance. So yeah, that is that in terms of SEFA. Our contact details, our website, our switchboard. Then we also have our helpline where you can drop us an email. You can also follow us. We've got the various social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. What is crucial in this slide is that we've got an online application platform. So if the question is, how do I access SEFA? How do I apply for funding? You can visit our website. You click under apply for funding. So you've got a portal there that will guide you how to apply. It will ask you quite a few questions. And the reason for that is we need to pre-screen an application and link the particular application with a program or an instrument that we do have. So if you link with TRAP, then we're able to then say apply for TRAP. If it's for a manufacturing scheme, we'll actually guide you like that. So that is that you have to submit applications online. The other beauty about the portal that we have is that if you are not eligible for SEFA funding for whatever reason, let's say for instance you're looking for 20 million and we know that our maximum is only 15 million, or you're looking for something that is outside of the maybe arms and ammunition, you know those exclusions that I did indicate, the portal will be able to guide you where to apply, so it will still be crucial to go through the SEFA process. If you're not eligible, it will give you other options rather than us saying we can help you. We do say that, but we also give you options where else you can go. So I know it was a rushed presentation and apologies for this, but just to allow enough time for a discussion before one. Thank you very much.
Okay. Abdidon, really thank you very much for availing yourself for this session. And I'm not sure if we have any questions that came directly to Abdidon Tony. But I see, Sasha, you wondered if the SEFA financial presentation will be shared with attendees. Most certainly, Abdidon, I believe you will be able to give us that presentation to share.
Indeed, we'll do that.
Yeah, and also, Abdidon, I guess through your office, any straight questions on this financing, we can send them through, but also like you gave there your contact details, or the contact details of SEFA, where people can be contacted, or can make contact and make inquiries regarding funding. So I think you gave that information quite clear. It didn't sound rushed. It sounded like the information we needed to know about, and we really do appreciate that from SEFA and from you availing yourself. You immediately said yes. I didn't even have to convince you a lot, and we really do appreciate that, Abdidon, and your presence here.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Colleagues, I'm aware that we are running slightly, a lot out of time. Let me check if, Jasmine, are you still around?
Yes, I'm here. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. So guys, let me give you this quickly. There's gonna be a poll that goes into the chat box. Please take that poll. I want to say we want to test something, but it will be interesting, and the poll results will be given after Jasmine's presentation. This is an introduction to Autogas. I don't know how many of you know about Autogas, but I do know for sure all of you were upset about the fuel prices going up, all that petrol price going up. Everybody was counting the scale, ticking up and up and up and up, and getting very frustrated. But have you really considered alternative source of energy, of fuel for your car, as opposed to petrol? Well, if you haven't, that's why Jasmine is here today, because LPGSA transportation fuel actually is a viability. The World LPG Association indicates that the demand for Autogas in 2020 stood at 24.5 million metric tons, which made about 8% of the overall LPG demand. it is a well-known issue that the majority of public transportation in South Korea literally operates on autogas. So in South Africa, this is a very underdeveloped market. And to tell us more about it is Jasmine. She's the director at Ergon. And I actually recently found out that Jasmine is one of the few, if not the only female in the autogas business in South Africa. But she will correct me. Jasmine, over to you.
Thank you, Khadi, and it's very nice to see all these women in the industry today, and thank you for the opportunity. I would like, though, to congratulate LPG Association in South Africa that takes that opportunity to introduce different sectors for women development. And to be honest, I don't know if I am the only female into this industry. For sure, though, it is a new industry for South Africa, while you very correctly said is not a new industry for the world. It's out there for between 80, 90 years already. It's a proven project, is a proven technology that is liaised directly to the automotive industry and using gas for vehicles. But in South Africa was not yet available due to different hiccups the country was facing in the previous years. First of all, lack of available fuel for automotive industry. Different parameters that now have been sorted. I can share presentation with the team. Just to mention a couple of things before that. Sorry, can I share it in between?
Yes, you can share.
Let me know if you can see it.
We can see it. Thank you.
Okay.
Just make presentation mode.
Okay. So just to give a bit of a background of who we are. First of all, Ergon is an international company. We are based in South Africa for the last 9 years, and we are dedicated in alternative fuel for vehicles. I can say that this industry is very well developed in other countries around the world. And our scope, our aim into South Africa markets was to start this industry from scratch in a correct way, if I can say, because there is a lot of potential. This potential, though, has to do with how correctly you can start implementing these technologies in a new market. An overview of the project itself. I understand that many of the people attending today have never heard about gas through the automotive industry. So I would say that Autogas is just adding on gas to an existing petrol operating vehicle. We're not cancelling petrol, we're just adding on gas. And we allow the driver to work on a biofuel vehicle, meaning that you switch over to gas anytime you want, you switch over back to petrol anytime you want. It gives you savings, it gives you greener environment, considering that obviously LPG is a green fuel. We reduce carbon emissions, we save the environment. We get tax benefits as an additional benefit into this industry. And I don't want to get you tired with technical details. I just want to give you an overview on what is that. As you see in this drawing, in this slide, it's just an add-on system in the vehicle. So we add on a specialized autogas tank in the boot or in the bakkie side, which is connected basically to the engine side with electronic components. We add on shut-off valves for safety reasons, and there is a switch button that turns you from gas to petrol and vice versa. Product compliancy is there. Current legislation is completing and supporting this project. Government authorities are still in the process of understanding, if I can put it like that. But the market is embracing this project at the moment, taking into consideration the fuel price going higher every day. and we all need savings, and we all need a greener environment. Obviously, automotive is a male-dominated industry, and we all know that opportunities are difficult to be shifted to women. But in our group, we have proven during the years that females can have equal opportunities with men. The reason being is that the automotive industry has a very wide scope. I can take the opportunities, I can take you through the opportunities, and I can explain to you how we also deal into this industry. As a company based in South Africa, first of all, we are very female oriented. Obviously, besides me being the director of the company, we do have operation manager being a woman. We are directing our we are directing our efforts to support women in this industry. Workshops needed for conversions can support women empowerment by ownership, by engineering, by administration positions. In a workshop, there is many sectors when a woman can be involved. Working on engines so far was never an opportunity for women. But if we change a bit our view, working on an engine has nothing more complicated for a woman rather than a man. This industry involves working in a workshop, owning a workshop, developing a network of fitment centers, of maintenance points for the vehicles, involves fuel, involves filling stations. Obviously, the filling station itself is not different than a petrol or a diesel filling station, which means that again, women opportunity are there. And I can share with you some views of our factories overseas where we have women involvement in the whole production line. It might sound very innovative, but in our factories we have understood that men can do certain job better than women, and women can do certain job better than men. In control lines, in welding lines, in assembly lines, we do have women involved. This industry coming to South Africa can have a huge expansion, can have different assembling line, production lines, and at the same time, women can be involved in the whole industry itself. I understand you all have questions about what is it and how it works and how it can work. I'm here to answer all your questions. At the moment, this Autogas project is still on an expansion plan. We do have distributors. We do have fitment centers available around the countries. We do have women in sales, and we do have very specialized technical departments, sales department, and support departments for our clients. I don't want to say more, or I don't want to get into more technical information about this how this industry works, but I hope I gave you a quick overview on how we can introduce this business into South Africa. Thank you.
Yeah, Jasmine, thank you very much for that presentation. I don't know if there's any questions, Tony, for Jasmine.
Yes, there are one or two questions that we got from the attendees. But before we field the questions, I just want to find out if we can, the poll, if we can show the results from the poll that we ran before Jasmine's section started.
Put it up for you now, Tony.
Okay, thank you.
It should be on screen now.
Okay, awesome. So the poll, just to refresh your memory, the poll was, have you heard about Autogas? And the second question was, have you thought about converting your car to Autogas? So the first one, I see that the wording is the same. Apologies for that. So the first question, the answer, you guys said 80% of you have heard of Autogas before, and 20% is a no. That's a very good distribution as far as the answers. And then the second question was, have you thought about converting your car to Autogas? We had 30% saying yes, 40% saying no, and maybe being 30%. So I think we can go ahead and combine the yes and the maybe to make it a 60%, which once again is a very, very good distribution between those points. So thank you guys for your participation in answering the questions. And then as far as what the attendees would like to find out, there was a question posed for Jasmine, and the question is, what have you found is the response from vehicle manufacturers with regards to the warranties on the vehicle? So obviously, I'll take a petrol or diesel car and convert it to run off Autogas. So would it void my warranty in any shape or form? Do you guys have relationships with these manufacturers? What's the general situation on that, Jasmine?
That's a very good question. Autogas conversion is a modification on the engine. So basically, we all know that car manufacturers, they hate any kind of modification to the engine, and it's very easy for them to say, you touch the vehicle, no, I don't cover anything. Though, talking about a global project, and obviously talking about a proven technology, because we are liaised with Westport Fuel Systems, which is the biggest group of technologies in the world in alternative fuel manufacturing, components manufacturing. We do have more than 30 OEM approvals as a group around the world. Obviously, transferring an OEM approval to local regulation needs, it's always difficult. We do have certain OEM approvals. We're fighting for more. We understand that every OEM has different needs. We go with them through specific proof of concepts, emission tests in order to get these approvals together. Taking also into consideration that we are working mainly with fleets. Remember, LPG in vehicles will give a 40% savings with the current fuel pricing as it stands now. That amount is more than enough for the fleet owners and fleet operators to push the OEM to accept that modification and allow them to move on, because otherwise they're losing money. So we are standing in a middle position at the moment where we know how the OEM work on a global level. We're trying in South Africa level to align them with the project. At the same time, we have the support of the fleet operators to assist that. And as a third component, we're offering a third-party warranty for the engine, for the confidence of the client, in order for them to be more convinced to convert. So it is a starting process. It is going to be a lot better as soon as the project gets more popular to the individuals. Though when it comes to fleets, it's already popular. People are happy to convert, and we do have embracement from certain manufacturers already.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much. So to that, I would say that 60% that we got, it's just time for you guys to action. Let's move it from a yes and a maybe to I've already done it. And then as soon as we have that, then the manufacturers and the OEMs will come on board as far as honoring your warranty. I think that's it from me. I will hand back to Khadi for her next introduction. Thank you.
Thank you too, Jasmine. Thank you. Jasmine, I think we just found somebody who's gonna lobby on behalf of Autogas, representing LPGSA and the industry here, in Tony right here. So you have a little helper, Santa's little helper there with you.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Thank you, and thank you, Jasmine, for availing yourself for this. It's always interesting to introduce sectors that are involved in LPG one way or the other in this in the country, growing or small or well developed. And we hope next year we're gonna have just a webinar on Autogas, and we'll be talking some interesting legislations and stats all over around the world. And even we'll have some stats to share in South Africa. I certainly loved being in your workshop and look forward to driving my first LPG driven car after what I saw there. Thank you for that.
Thank you too. Congratulations again. Carry on like that. You're doing a great job into this industry. And we're always available to answer your questions and to assist clients. You know where we are, you know what we're doing. We're doing it in a national footprint at the moment. And very soon, hopefully next year, we will be able to present all the success stories we're already creating here.
Okay, great. We look forward to that.
Keep well.
Keep well. Okay. I think the next session, really the next 15 minutes, and if you can indulge us, our colleagues, the next 15 minutes to 15 to 20 minutes, are one of our favorite success stories in LPGSA, and we've only started about 12 months ago in this. So let me just introduce to you Esme Ditoy. So LPGSA has been doing a lot of firsts lately. Obviously myself, since Feb last year, the first female MD ever. For this association. Then you met Pam earlier, the first female board chairperson, and then you heard about the first female MDs of multinationals. So we've been doing well, yeah. I think DMRE can hear this. We're doing well. Please deliver the message to the minister that LPG is doing well, but that's not enough. But this year again, we went a step further. We have another first. A first female installer division chairperson. So now, and a board representative for that matter. And that's Esme. Now, if you know about installation business, gas installation business, you will know definitely it's a male dominated industry. And I'm not gonna steal from Esme's conversation or talk. Let me just tell you a little bit about her. She's actually a psychologist and sociologist combined. She has a degree in that, but then she decided, no, that's not enough. I want to be a qualified domestic and commercial installer. So she trained for it, but she goes, no. Actually, you know what? I'm also a plumber. So she is also a registered plumber. So yeah, a loss to psychology and sociology again to LPG. Esme is our first, like I said, our first female installer division. So she does have a lot of say, and she just talk, you know, have to talk, and the men have to listen. And you will hear when she talks. You cannot not listen when Esme talks. Esme, over to you.
Hi, thank you, Khadi. I wrote out this whole speech because English is not my first language. So I'm going to sort of read it to you. I am very privileged today to actually speak to all the ladies on this webinar. I didn't realize until this week how little of us are in the industry. So we are a elite group, actually. Yes. So I've been a gas installer and a plumber for a few years now, and which has been very rewarding for me to move around in this industry. When I step out in the morning, I purely associate as someone that's going to do my job. I don't necessarily associate as a specific gender. I'm there to do my job to the best of my ability. And in my profession, when I get to a site and I look at the people working their trades beside me, I see people who wake up the same way I do in the morning, and they put on their boots, their safety boots, and they go and do their work just like I do to provide for their families best they can. I see fixers, I see hard workers, I see a willingness in people to do a job that very few people are willing to do, to get their hands dirty and Sometimes it's not pleasant, sometimes it is, but in general, the attitude and the feeling on site is very positive towards me, normally the only lady there. I'm not trying to be a man or to prove anything to anybody except myself. And when people look at me, they see a woman. And yes, that is exactly what I am. I'm a woman in society and at home. I've given birth 3 times, which is 3 times more than any man will ever do. I'm a loving, supporting wife and a nurturing and very protective mother. I'm a sister and I'm a daughter to my parents. Unfortunately, our reality as women in especially male-dominated industries is that we still face workplace challenges. There's sexual harassment. Actually, in industry, in construction-related industry, last year there was 88.8% complaints for sexual harassment, official complaints lodged. This is issues that our men counterparts don't ever need to think about or learn how to deal with. Women working in these fields go to work every day already saddled with the task of proving their worth and abilities. This originates from presumptions in regards to gender that women cannot be able, capable and as efficient as men. This is a weight our male colleagues do not have to bear. It is quite easy for any man of no particular character to go into any trade. No questions asked, yet when women choose to go into a male-dominated industry, it is either questioned by their peer groups, frowned upon by their direct support systems, and just overall discouraged. So when a woman does go ahead and enter any male-dominated industry, in spite of a lot of negative opinion, it already says something about her character and about her work ethic. It is an absolute reflection of her determination, conviction, and strength. Currently worldwide, however, we are faced with an enormous underrepresentation of women in trade and construction-related industries. Women make up nearly half of today's total workforce, but only about 10% of the construction labor, construction labor force. And of that 10%, most women operate in administrative or office positions. So only 2.5% of that 10% work in the field as tradeswomen. In South Africa, Khadi and I very disappointedly found out that there are only currently 15 registered female gas installers, of which 15 has domestic licenses and 9 commercial, and 5 of those carry industrial licenses. Now, to move on through your license qualifications, you do need to carry the previous one. So I would guess from this that we are pretty much just 15 ladies in this industry. I think a big factor leading to this underrepresentation of women in construction-related industries is the fact that girls aren't being introduced to construction when they're young. And as they grow into young women, they aren't seeing themselves represented in construction roles. If you look on social media, if you Google an image of somebody in construction, it's normally a man that pops up. So it makes sense that they aren't going to be drawn to the trades. The trades aren't even on their radar when they start planning a future. But things are changing, and a lot can still be done to encourage young ladies to investigate their options in trades. I think main focus should be exposure and breaking down gender barriers. This is one of the reasons why women-focused bursaries, like the LPGSA is offering, play such an important role in educating ladies, where they, again, when they go into their trades and into their environments, they go back into their social environments and unintentionally start breaking down those gender-biased presumptions of women in trade. I would like for us to go ahead now and have a look at the bursaries that the association will be offering this year. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Esme. Just as a treat for our attendees, we compiled a video for the 2021 bursary recipient. They went through their training. This was so fun. Because all of a sudden the whole association was murdering these 6 young ladies, and to see them do well, all of them are now in the last stages of receiving their licenses. So to that 15, you're gonna add more, yeah, Esme, before the end of the year. I'm promised by 3 of them that before end of September, 3 more will be qualified and fully registered and licensed. So we will make headways. But just to introduce that video to you, and almost immediately followed by one of the alumni who happens to be there, that lady with Afro there, Lihle Zama, and she will also introduce the 2022 bursaries. I'm not going to steal from her so that she can, I guess, plug you. That's what you say, young people. She can plug you. Yes. So Nivan, just share with us that video, please.
I am Koketo Moja, born in Haranguwa, the north side of Pretoria. I was an office assistant at a gas company in Centurion, working with commercial installers. My previous employer called all female employees and informed us about the LPGSA bursary. I then wrote my motivational letter to the LPGSA, then I won the competition. The training experience gave me a better understanding through putting all the theory into practice. One thing I learned is that gas installation is always different from each household because the desires are never the same. This industry is not for a specific gender, but for a dedicated and hardworking individual. For the first time in my career, I have a clear route and I wake up knowing where I'm headed. I'm planning on opening a company that will grow from domestic to commercial, and when it grows bigger, I can now tap into the industrial space. The journey right now is to learn as much as I can so I can pass the knowledge and encourage women like me to enter into this industry. Not only limited to ladies, but to young men who have zero knowledge about this industry.
My name is Bagit Mpomozo Mabuza, and prior to receiving the LPGS bursary, I was pursuing my business management qualification after losing my job due to the COVID-19 pandemic. My partner told me about the LPGS, and we spoke about starting our LPG installer business and teach people about the safety of LPGS. I then visited their website and came across the LPGS bursary competition. I then wrote my motivational letter, and the rest is history. The experience has been amazing. And what I've learned is that if you are determined, persistent, and hardworking, the impossible doesn't exist. You can do it if you believe in yourself. With this initiative, my life has changed, and I look forward to starting my own LPG installation business. And my aim is to encourage women to tap into the LPG industry and know that it can be done.
My name is Lihle Zama. I am an entrepreneur with 12 years of experience in marketing. I studied psychology and possess an honors degree in gender studies. I was informed about the LPGSA bursary by a family friend who is involved in the energy sector. I then read up on what was required of me to participate, and I wrote the essay on the importance and benefits of using LPG in households. The best part about the training is the practical experience and having to make use of different tools, especially the pipes. Gas has a reputation of being a scary thing, but I have concluded that it's partially science and mainly common sense. Like any material, it must be handled with care and caution. I am excited to be part of the solution and an active participant of the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. I believe that the access to LPG will not only meet Goal 7, which is access to clean energy, but will also lead to the realization of at least 12 other goals outlined. As a managing director of my company, I aim to employ local females, expand the use of LPG in households, and be a thought leader in the LPG space globally in the near future.
You're on mute, Lise.
It's so weird hearing my own voice. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for making your time available and staying with us this long. I am a proud recipient of the 2021 LPGSA bursary. The journey has been absolutely incredible. I just want to send a huge vote of thanks on behalf of cohort 1 and myself to Khadi, the entire LPGSA team, the sponsors, as well as partners who have facilitated our ability to reach the milestone that we've reached in our journey. We are all at different steps currently. We have a WhatsApp group where we motivate each other, push each other, ask each other questions, but most times we give each other the same answer, which is ask Khadi. Because just like she mentioned earlier on, she is very active in making sure that we become a success, and I cannot articulate this any better or any louder, but you cannot be in better hands than those of Khadi, the LPGSA team, the trainers, as well as the facilitators over the duration of the course. So it's also not a foreign concept to me that I am extremely lucky and blessed to be in this platform with these amazing women throughout the entire value chain of LPG. And I am excited for what the future holds for me as an individual, as well as the entire community in all the strides that we're yet to make. So without further ado, I would love to introduce, and if I had drums, I'd do a drum roll right now. Drum roll. I say we because I'm a part of the LPGSA community now, but we have made the decision to roll out with a second phase of the LPGSA bursary for females. Whereas in the first year, there were only 6 bursaries available. We've doubled it for the next year. We've got 12 bursaries available. These have been sponsored by the LPGSA, Petregaz, and Oryx Energy South Africa. So much like my year, you have to write an essay in English with no more than 2,000 typed words. The topic for this year is LPGSA's mandate is to promote the sustainable growth of the liquefied petroleum gas industry, compliance with safety regulations and best business practices. Discuss the ways in which LPGSA can achieve this mandate. You must also include an explanation of how becoming a residential LPG installer will change your life. To enter the competition, the applicant must be female, a South African resident with a valid South African ID. You must be between the ages of 18 and 45. You must have passed grade 9 with English and mathematics, and you must be from a previously disadvantaged group as stipulated by the BBEE Act. So the competition itself opens on the 1st of September, which is Thursday, and it closes on the 17th of October 2022. So submissions must be submitted via email to khadibolai@lpgas.co.za and shamilin@lpgas.coza. For more details, there are terms and conditions on the LPG website, which is www.lpgas.co.za. So please attach your essay, attach your ID, attach your marks showing where you did English and maths, and wait for the chance to change your life. I can testify for the entire cohort 1 group that this experience has been incredible. It's allowed us to think outside of the norms and the boxes that are usually drawn out and put in place for women. And we're all at various stages right now of our journey, but what I can confirm to you is watch the space. We're all going to achieve incredible things after this. And I think it's also important to note that, you know, with it being Women's Month, you know, we as women, we're always told this thing of competing and not being in each other's corner. And I can honestly say that is further from the truth. Based off of this panel today, the information that they've shared and the time that they've shared with us, as well as the cohort 1 group. So we are excited to welcome cohort 2 warmly. Start drafting your essays, start doing your research, and wait for the chance to change your life. Thank you so much, Khadi and the Win LPG group for this amazing opportunity.
Thank you, Lihle. Thank you, Esme, and the rest of the cohorts 1. We really do appreciate. You've made our year quite fun, I must say. A lot of pins and needles, a lot of heart attacks, but look at us, we're still standing, yeah? Thank you very much for that. We are not trying to trick you with that topic. The answers are so simple. The responses are so simple. All you have to do is go to WLPGA website and read up. Go to LPGSA website and read up. Check out different companies' websites. You can make reference to saying you know the reference is from this, like in terms of making sure that you're not making as if the material is yours. Do that. We pretty much know where you're gonna get the answers anyway, so we know that you're not gonna. We are not tricking you. This is not a trick. All the details will be in our website, www.lpgas.lpgas.co.za. From tomorrow, you will find all the details there on how to enter the competition, and it's 12 bursaries. I mean, like, you do not understand how proud we are of that. And yeah, just enter and you'll see. I'll take care of you. I'm good at that. Thank you very much. I don't suppose there's any questions, but if there's any questions on the bursary, we will be glad to answer them as LPGSA via email, like we've been saying. If there's any questions for either Lihle or Esme, we will also try to get hold of them to make sure that they answer those questions for you. So I know that we have stolen a lot of your time and we are now closing off. We are closing off with our, like, literally, I'm in South Africa. I'm the mother of LPG, apparently. Like, as the mother of LPG, I have a bigger sister, and the bigger sister is there on the spot, and that is WLPGA. We're just gonna introduce Alison Abbott. She is the WLPGA Communications Director, and she's gonna tell us all about the Women in LPG Awards. Alison, and close for us, please.
I will. It's my honor to close. First of all, Hadi and Nivan and your talented team, what a great event. Fantastic atmosphere just on a webinar, and it is moving. And can you imagine doing this live? The last time I was in South Africa, we held a WIN meeting. There are a few people I recognize, and everyone was singing. And it was so moving, and I can't wait to do this again. It's great, but we do it live next time. Now, as the communications director for the World LPG Association, we set up Women in LPG in 2015, and we appreciate we're a male-dominated industry, and the World Association is perfectly pleased to do something about this. So I'm so proud to have set this up with my colleague and friend Nikki. Today we've got nearly 3,000 webinars around the world, and we have 9 national chapters, including, of course, South Africa chapter, which is led by Hadi. And these national chapters enable us to do work in countries because every country has a different need. So they're very, very important. I know that we're running out of time, so I will be quick in my comments, but I wanted to mention our awards. Now, these awards were set up 3 years ago. Firstly, to recognise the Woman of the Year, and then later we added the Young Woman of the Year, because we recognise that young women, we say that as under 35, have a different career pathway. So what's good news is that these awards are now open. So think about everybody on this call. Think about who you'd like to nominate. We all know outstanding women. There's tons of us on this call now. And or nominate yourself. There's a simple form on the WLPGA website which you can see on the screen, but also you can just email me. Now, every year we receive dozens of amazing nominations, and we do select this with a blind panel. Also, everyone who applies is showcased on our website. And my dear friend Pam, there's a reason why you were nominated Woman of the Year. You talked about picking up the pace, and nominating women from South Africa is a really great way to do this. And even if you don't win, we recognise everyone who does. So that's all I wanted to say about the Woman of the Year Awards. And just to give my closing comments, I mean, where to start? I would have picked on a few things that we've discussed, but there have been so many amazing points raised, and it's hard just to isolate a few. We could spend days going over all this and coming out with actions that would be so amazing. The one thing I want to say is that we also shouldn't be too hard on ourselves. South Africa is the poster girl for women in our industry. Look at Hadi, you talked about firsts. You're the first female leader of the association. Pam is the first female CEO of Oryx and president of the association. There are ladies around this table who I don't know are first CEOs of their own businesses, and we need to shout about this. And this is where we at the World Association can help. So I'll take this as an action that I'll liaise with Hadi and talk to a lot of you to create role models around you. There's a lot we can do. You can also learn, as Hadi, you said, learning from India and Brazil. We have national chapters in those countries. So let's look at the best practices. I know what a lot of them are. We could talk about this for hours as well. Let's look at what they've done and how we can learn for South Africa. The lady Hilda representing the Deputy Prime Minister, I love the fact that you said, I'm in. You can't get better than that. I applaud their goals for accelerating the industry in South Africa. We're behind you on this. The World Association, South Africa, as you know, is very important to us. She made many important points, but I think the one that struck me the most, we must make this sector appealing to young women and to young people in general. We must do this. And this is something that, again, the network can do. We also run a body called the Youth Council that the WLPGA runs, and that works alongside women in LPG to help promote youth in the industry and make this a more attractive industry, one that some people want to join. There are so many good reasons why we should want, we've all got amazing jobs. The video was great. What cool stories of brilliant young women. In the interest of time, I'm going to close here, but Hadi, thank you for allowing me to be part of this really important event. It was great. The time went like that. I made loads of notes. I just have one request, and that is, can we do it live next year? Thank you so much. A round of applause for you all.
We are doing it live next year. We are really doing it live next year, Alison, and we're definitely going to invite you. That I can assure you of. Ladies and gentlemen, I think certainly now we're coming to an end. I know we are 30 minutes behind. Indulge me with 2 more minutes. Yeah, I really do hope that you got what you wanted to get out of this session. You understand the industry a little bit better. You understand the value chain a little bit better. And you definitely know, as a woman, as a young person in this country, the sky is never a limit. There's no such a thing as a limit. You can do it. LPGSA is here to assist you. Call us, give us time so that we can assist you. It's never easy because of all the barriers that you have to navigate through, but it's possible. And I'm hoping soon we will be able to showcase some young people that have, stood the test of time and went through the process and are actually doing it so well, doing well for themselves in this industry, in this country. So I'm really hoping that we're gonna showcase them soon, very, very soon. They are listening. I know they are gonna allow me to showcase them very soon. All the material that we spoke about, all the videos here will be on YouTube soon. We'll make sure within September they are all there. All your questions will be answered through emails, make sure. All the bursary informations or entry requirements will be on our website. But colleagues, you saw everything run smooth. Tony didn't have to take over in terms of, hosting, but he did take over in terms of Q&As. I will be such a terrible leader or boss, as my team calls me, boss lady, if I don't acknowledge them. Like LPGSA team, this team gets beaten up quite a lot by myself too, but they do such an incredible team. I have a staff complement of, believe it or not, 12, but we do quite a lot, and this team gets pushed quite a lot. To my team, LPGSA A team, that's how I call you. I'm still gonna push you after this, obviously, but thank you very much for making this possible. Thank you very much for mending the office while we are having this session, those who are mending the office. It's like when we have these sessions, planning sessions, we go, everybody knows their role. And without even conversation, everybody does know their role. And I really do appreciate my team for that. And I know they will be here to assist you whenever you need help. So don't be shy, consult them, and be nice, please, when you talk to them. And to our attendees, to my panels, to my speakers, I really do appreciate you, appreciate your presence in this session. And let's do it again next year. Cheers. Should I do it? Zola 7? I don't know how to do flates. Thank you, colleagues. Cheers. Yes, that was, that's what we should have done, Lisa.